Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on June the 19th, 2018. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, recouping after a long week,
Caffeine Rage.
On today's show, we will, of course, be discussing the games that we've played for something like 3 weeks now. Sony faces a growing Fortnite backlash at and after E3. West Virginia tourist sites see massive traffic after Fallout 76 reveal. The WHO makes gaming disorder an official diagnosis. We'll have our weekly community corner and our Steam weekly discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rach.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing alright. Kind of settled down in the new place. Hopefully my audio's a bit better here since there's not as much background noise to remove.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds the same to me, but I haven't actually really played with the editing of it much. Although I guess all the E3 stuff was at your new place, and that was fine. I didn't have to make any changes to that. So
what? No, just muting me and I pretend that I don't exist?
Nah, I would never do that.
As far as I know.
Actually, that's not true. Sometimes I do that, but also sometimes I mute myself. Like, whenever we will talk over each other, sometimes I'll adjust it so that it sounds like one of us talked and the other one talked. Or sometimes I will just mute one of us, depending on what we had to say in the moment. Like, it just varies. But I have muted you sometimes when I was talking, but I've also muted myself sometimes when you were talking. So,
I don't think fair. We're, well, I was about to say, I don't think we're as bad as we used to be. Then immediately I started to jump in whenever you weren't quite done talking.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a little bit of Skype lag, but it's not too bad. And with careful editing and syncing it up properly, 95% of the time, it's fine. And then like 4% of the time where we do wind up talking over each other, there's so little of it that I don't really bother with it. And it's only like 1% of the time that I have to make any adjustments.
And on the plus side, it'll never be as bad as that one time that we had a guest and his connection was terrible.
Yeah.
Oh. He had like a 3-second delay at times?
Yeah. And it kept cutting out too.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I felt like an ass.
And that's different from usual how?
Okay. More so of an ass.
I figured you'd have like a comeback at me, which I totally would have deserved. But it's alright.
Well, I realized that that's why you're into me. You're an ass man.
I am definitely an ass man. I mean, I like tits too. Don't get me wrong. But like, if I have to have one or the other, I'm going for ass. Every time.
Yeah, you're the principal from prison school.
I'm shaking my head vigorously, yes.
I've sent you that before. I know I have.
Yeah, you have. I'm shaking my head vigorously, yes. So we have got quite a few games to cover this week. We're going to be alternating. It's another one of those weeks. You have 5, I have 6. And we never did say whether or not we were going to talk about spin tires together.
We could do that at the end.
Okay, we will do that at the end then, and just put it on our lists later. But why don't you go ahead and you start, and we will be alternating this week.
Yeah, for most of mine, well, I have 1 week where I had literally nothing, so this is technically 2 weeks instead of 3 for me.
Yeah.
And most of mine are on the theme. I probably would have liked it better, but I didn't. And let's start off with Moonlighter. This is business management dungeon roguelite. Think essentially Raceteer. A little bit more refined, but kind of bland. So, you are the owner of the family shop called the Moonlighter. And in order to furnish your shop, you have to go down to the local dungeon, like you do,
Right.
kill
Obviously.
things, get loot, and then teleport back. And as you progress through each of the 5 dungeons, they open up in sequence, and different items drop from different dungeons. And it's pretty much a sequence of the next dungeon is more expensive stuff, but also tougher, so you have to build up in the previous thing. My big problem with it is that there's nothing that really shakes it up. At least in the first 5 hours. This was the Sunday sampler for last week. And I realize saying a roguelite is a grind is like calling the sky blue. But a lot of games hide the grind by having things interesting happen. To throw Binding of Isaac at it, for example, you're able to find new weapons to change your play style or how you should be playing that particular run. And that variance on your power level keeps the thing interesting. In this, you have 5 weapons that are all upgradable, but you only could take... Well, you could take as many as you want out of the 5, but you have exceptionally limited bag space, and you could only equip 2 items at a time. So if you take more than 2 weapons, or I should say 2 weapons, a set of armor, a talisman, and 1 stack of potions, you could equip those all on your person. And then everything else is in either your essentially belt slot or in your backpack. But because there's no upgrades to the backpack whatsoever, it feels like you're really, really limiting yourself if you take the stuff in your backpack to use along the way. So you can see, kind of a problem here already.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, the weapons are uninteresting. You got your typical sword and board, your sword and shield, which has a secondary attack of being able to block. You have a spear that is essentially a long-range pokey stick, pretty much all spear. But you could also do a charge attack where you kind of charge up and then run the enemies. Bow and arrow, which I never really built because it was a pain in the ass to build. And everything takes so much money. I mean, even leaving the dungeon takes a particular amount of money depending on the floor you're on. That, it's just so much of a grind. It just was very unsatisfying. Which really upset me because art-wise, this game is gorgeous for pixel art. The overworld is a little bit oversaturated in my opinion, but it has some really nice animations, a fair amount of enemy variety. The bosses are interesting, but you only fight them once to unlock the next dungeon, which kind of defeats the purpose of going down far enough to get to the boss level. It's just, there's so many odd things about this game design-wise.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this game on a couple of the podcasts that I listen to, and everyone seems to really like it, but get frustrated at some of the things that you're saying that you're getting frustrated at, like the inventory, the
business
dungeons
management
being a little bit sort of not tacked on, but more shallow than they need to be for the type of game that this is.
Yeah, pretty much my assessment as well. Everything feels like it's a good base to build off of, but they released it and it's not an early access game. This is a full release. The business management aspect is the same thing where, unlike Raceteer where you're kind of bartering back and forth, this is more of a set price. Your typical shop. And the shopkeeping is fucking irritating. For one, you have to set your price, but you have no really indication of what the price should be for things. So you either set it high and just increment it down, or you set it too low, people buy it at a huge discount and you lose money. And the thing is that everything costs so fucking much. The top tier weapons, for example, that all the weapons and armor have essentially 2 upgrade paths. And once you make your initial choice, you're stuck on it. There's no crossover, which is also fucking irritating. because if you hit a particular floor that requires elemental resistance, which certain weapons may grant extra elemental damage, you're shit out of luck. You have to build from scratch. But the weapons each was 7,500,000. $750,000, if I recall correctly. So to upgrade both your weapons is $1.5 million, and that's not even counting if you've done other weapons. And that's a lot of money. Granted, maybe the later dungeons have that balanced out, but it's still just such an inflation. And some other things. It falls into the typical roguelite problem of certain areas feeling exceptionally unfair if you don't have the proper loadout. But because you're not able to build your loadout on the fly like most other roguelites, you go into a particular dungeon with your loadout, you may as well say no because you're screwed. The business aspect I didn't really go into or too deeply because it's really shallow to begin with, but you set your prices, but you also have to watch out for thieves. And there's no real incentive outside of just getting your item back to catch them. Because whenever you catch a thief, the item goes back into inventory, not back to the slot that thief stole it from. And if you're trying to get a prospective price on something, it makes it even more fucking irritating because you have to reset that again. There's just so many things, so many little things that keep me from really liking this game. And it's just very disappointing to me because on the surface, this is a game that would have been, this would have been my jam, for lack of a better term. Because I like my business management, I like my roguelites. This is one of the hacky slashy, Legend of Zelda-esque area of roguelites, but there's just so many design problems. If you've played deeper roguelites or deeper business management games, you're going to have a lot of problems. If you played Raceteer, you're going to hate this because there's so many things from Raceteer that are just not present in this, but you can see, progression in other places, particularly combat. Maybe if they do a DLC to fix some problems, but right now, no.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of on the fence about it, so hearing you say that means, I'm probably not going to get it. I'm definitely not putting it on my wish list. Trying to be better about that. I've got my wish list down to just over 1,300 games. It's down from like 16 or 1,700, so I'm getting there.
I'm sure you'll also put a dent into it this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know how many games I'm going to buy, but I'm definitely going to try and be much more choosy than I have been. Like last year, I spent something like somewhere between $150 and $200 on the Steam sale buying several games that were more expensive. This year, I'm really going to dig through my wish list and try and find a few like really top tier, or not necessarily top tier, but like games that really interest me a lot instead of just blowing everything on the first, as many cheap games as I can get.
Yeah.
Because, that's what I used to do when I didn't have any games in my library. I was like, I'll spend $20 and get 20 games that are on sale for $1.
And all of them suck.
And many of them suck. But now I get so many free games all the time. I know, third world problems. I get so many free games to play.
Wouldn't that be first world? Or wouldn't third world problems be, I'm very hungry right now?
Did I say third world? I meant first world. I meant first world. But yeah, first world problems.
I realize that was very politically incorrect, but...
Yeah, first world problems, I know. I get too many free video games, boo-hoo-hoo. But, it just, my Steam library is clogged up, and I need to sort it again. I sorted it like 6 or 8 months ago.
Oh, look at me, my Steam library is clogged up.
I know, another first world problem. So I'm going to try and buy some games that I think will really interest me, as opposed to just like, how many games can I buy with the money in my Steam wallet?
Well, mine's kind of a combination of, I buy things that are interesting, but also cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try and maximize the amount of money spent, but, I'm not going to try and get, I don't know, 50 games for $100.
Yeah, well, one other thing that about Moonlighter before we go on to your first game is that there's a couple times that also, even though the art is really good, it's kind of clogged. It's kind of everything gets lost in the mix. Particularly, what you could see on the Steam store, the areas whatever there's goop on the ground, because red goop. You could see it on the, what is it? It's about the middle screenshot. Just look for the one with a lot of red in it. It's the one next to the Alchemist.
Okay.
Take a look at the slimes. The slimes really, really blend in. And it's very easy to take some additional hits. And thankfully, this isn't as hardcore on its combat as Binding of Isaac, where, you only get a few hits, because you do have a stack of health potions that you take with you. And also on every dungeon level, going towards the exit, there's a healing fountain that you could set in and regain, if not all, a good chunk of your health. So maybe that's also part of the problem, is that if the grind is there for a more difficult game, but the difficulty isn't, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it does. Makes sense. I'm tracking.
And, well, also the crafting mechanics are very lacking just in general. There's the ability to wishlist things, to just flag them. But the way it handles management on your inventory, if, let's say, I flag something that I need for my next level of armor. All right. I'll flag my next level of armor as a wishlist item. It'll flag everything that is required of it. Even if I have, 5 or 6 times that, the requirements, because one of them is a common drop. So it kind of cuts into the business aspect side of things where, okay, I see I need this, but I don't know how much of this I need unless I'm taking notes. And sort of the same thing on the Alchemist, but there's an interesting thing on the Alchemist where you're able to bring in an ingredient and spend a little bit for each potion. But then there's the second version of that where it's just a pure gold, but it's like 5 times as expensive, which is an interesting side grade if you're wanting to get very big health potions, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, there is promise here, and if you are not as deep into the genre, it's definitely worth at least a look. I'm not sure about the $20 price tag, particularly because of how shallow it is, and some reports that it's a 10-ish hour game, which I could definitely see it being a very short game if you're rushing through it. And but I was not exactly rushing through it. I was more, testing out different things and hit a couple snags where, I was just hitting unfair floors, which also cut into progression. Oh, and one other thing about the combat. I completely forgot about it until I was sick.
One other thing?
Yeah. It's a Steve Jobs one more thing. And I completely forgot about it until I was sitting here looking at the GIFs GIFs, Devolver, on the Steam store page is there's one fucking irritating thing about the combat is that it doesn't flow very well. In that every time you attack, you stop. And there's no real good of chaining your movement and your attacks. And for a game that has a lot of dodge mechanics and a lot of bullet hell-esque enemies, it can be fucking frustrating. Granted, they also counterbalance this with allow you to chug health potions like crazy, like you're chugging cheese in Skyrim. But still, this feels like a game that was designed to be something else, but they changed the design focus about partway through. And there's remnants of a more action dodge focused game, something like Entering the Gungeon, than what they ended up with. Any questions?
I don't think so. I don't think that I'm going to buy this game, at least right now. I'm not wishlisting it, but I'm not going to mark it as not interested either. So I'll just, maybe if I hear something about it. Maybe if I hear something about it, improvements, DLC, updates, whatever, I'll give it a second look. Because I did like Reciteer quite a lot.
Yeah.
But
Granted,
if this game is...
Reciteer, it says I have a lot less hours in it than I actually do, but yeah, this is no updated Reciteer. Well, it is an updated Reciteer, but it's a downgrade.
Yeah.
So get Reciteer instead. Too long didn't read.
High praise right there for Reciteer. Alrighty, well, the first game on my list is a game which you talked about the last time we had games we played.
Yeah.
Which is Mercury Fallin. So Mercury Fallin, in case you missed that episode or whatever, is a sort of very
hybrid
light...
rim world. Well, I was going to say hybrid rim world with Dungeon Keeper.
Yeah. A little more, I think it feels pretty light on the RimWorld. I mean, I haven't played RimWorld, but there's no combat. It doesn't feel like there's very much danger to anybody. The biggest danger that you have is starvation or people dying from repeated, wrist stress injuries from mining too much. But as soon as you start growing...
mining, okay.
As soon as you start growing food, you don't have to worry about starving to death. And as soon as you get even one doctor station, you don't have to worry about people dying from injuries. So, and it takes a really long time. I ran an experiment, to see how long it would take someone to die from injuries. Starvation happens fairly quickly, but you can only go a few days without food before your colonists die. But it takes, months for a colonist to die from repeated injuries without treatment. So you have to either get some pretty serious negative quirks, which are traits that your colonists can have, which make them take injuries faster, and not heal them at all. Just avoid getting a medical station at all for colonists to die from that. But anyways, I'm kind of got a little sidetracked immediately. So Mercury Fallin, I really like this game for what it is. It's pretty perfect for what it is for my purposes. I've been on a quest the last few weeks trying to find games that I can play at work. I have sporadic downtime throughout the day, and so I'm looking for games that can either pretty much be constantly running in the background on my laptop, and I just tab over to them when I have a client no-show, or I'm all caught up on my paperwork waiting for something else, or a game that I can just pop up and play for 15 or 20 minutes at a time, and then put it away. And Mercury Fallin runs pretty swell on my laptop. It can't quite hit 60, and the more of the map that you explore, the frame rate slowly dips down towards 30 the farther that you go. But it runs fine when I'm tabbed out of it, and doesn't seem to crash too often. I haven't had it crash at all, actually. There are people that have said that it does crash occasionally, but I have not experienced that, and I do make sure I save every so often so that if it does crash, I won't lose too much progress. But it's perfect for that. Basically, you don't have direct control over your colonists. You can set up priorities for different actions they can take, like mining, food prep, research, etc., etc. And then you just set up a bunch of things, and then they will do them as they can based on materials available, their levels like tiredness and hunger, because if they get tired, they sleep. If they get hungry, they eat, etc. And then they do them. And then if everything is done, they'll take care of basic tasks like eating and sleeping and food prep and things like that. And producing resources at the smelter for metals, and the organic processor for things like
organics.
Well, yeah, organic stuff. Like plastics. Plastics is considered organic. I'm not sure what plastics counts as in the real world. I mean, it's obviously not a metal, so if you're only going to have two categories, it fits more in organic than metal. But it feels weird that plastics is, yeah. But you plastics and cloth, and I
should just call it the vacuum former.
Yeah. I forget what it's called, but it's like the basic building material for everything. It's like some sort of resin. Actually, that might be what it's called, bioresin. So your colonists will do that, and then I can just come back and like, oh, you finished everything. Okay, well, let me assign all of these tasks. And you have colonists and you have robots, and the robots only require power, but they can't do as many tasks. They can basically only do the physical labor tasks: mining, building, deconstructing, and hauling materials.
So far. The further on you do get better bots.
Nope.
My main,
nope. The deep core miner is the only different one you get, which can dig
I thought there was other ones.
The ground. Nope.
Maybe there'll be more later because it is an early access game, and
so
that's part of the reason why I didn't do a Sunday sampler on that.
I'm pretty sure I got way farther than you did.
Yeah.
Did you get the cloning vat?
No, I didn't. I wasn't sure how you'd get new colonists, but I'm assuming you just clone them.
Yep. You just make them.
Copy and paste.
The cloning vat basically breaks the game. So there's the robot assembler and the cloning vat. And the robot assembler builds robots, obviously. And the robots cost resources. And researching the robotics tree gives you more points to customize or to like boost the robot's skills. So they can move faster, work faster, haul more, and they will level up their skills faster. But I mean, you can just build a basic robot with 0 skill points. And the more skill points you put into the robots, the more materials that they require. And at some point, they start requiring the advanced materials that you have to make it in, like the circuits and the gears that you can make in the assembly lab.
Wait. If the robots don't require circuits before, what's in them?
Copper bars, iron bars, and steel bars.
So it's just literally a crate of different metal bars scooting around.
Basically. But yeah, like the basic robots only require those, and then the more skill points you put into them, the more advanced materials and construction time they require. And that all feels fine. I think that it's a little unbalanced. Like, once you get past like 5 skill points, it starts requiring the advanced materials, and those are pretty resource inefficient. So it's difficult to be like, do I want to invest this many points in a little worker robot? I have 5 worker robots and 3 deep core miners. And the deep core miners can literally only mine the ore tiles that are on the floor. That's their only job. They can't haul, they can't construct or deconstruct. They can just mine. I kind of like them. You know, I would.
Oh, look, your spirit animal.
But
they don't do anything but mine.
But the cloning bay basically breaks the game, because all the cloning bay requires is power and water. And you can just you can infinitely like clone colonists. I mean, eventually you'll overtax your food and water and sleeping facilities, and you might break the game from having too many characters running around. But with no other resource investment, you can just be like, I need a couple more people to do research or engineering or whatever. So let me just, clone a couple of those. And
now the question is, do your original colonists wear a shirt that says Control C?
No, they don't, but that would be hilarious. But I mean, like, the cloning vat basically breaks the game when you get that far. So I had 4 colonists. You have a random chance to find stasis pods the more you explore out and mine out the world. And you also have a random chance to find worker bots. I don't know if you have a chance to find deep core miners. I've never found one, but I haven't also completely explored the couple of maps that I've started. So they might be there, like in the far reaches. But, yeah, the cloning vat just breaks the game, because basically it's just like 3 or 4 in-game days to grow a new person. And then they can do everything with
They grow up so fast.
With no other resource investment other than making sure you're able to feed them. But by the time you've got the cloning vat, you also have researched basically all of the food production lines, and you have a near infinite food supply. Just because you're growing so many space potatoes and then space fish, and turning those space fish into space sushi.
What, not space fish sticks?
You can. That's first space fish and chips, then space sushi.
So we're not going the doctor and having custard with it.
No, there's no custard. You can make space hamburgers later once you grow space bread.
Wait, where's the meat?
You can make space sandwiches. I don't know. It's a space hamburger, but you only grow fish or cultivate fish. And I'm not sure where they get the first fish from. It's just like you build a fish tank and it's like, I have fish. I'm going to grow fish. Video game logic, I guess.
Ding.
Fish
it sounds like I would have had a lot of other problems with this game if I stuck with it. My major problems was that it felt a bit shallow already, and that it forces you down, at least initially, a very set path, which I really don't like.
Yeah, to actively play this game, it would be boring at best.
And that was also something else. Probably adding to the whole, this game feels very shallow.
Yeah, but for my purposes, as a background game where I just set up a ton of actions and then let it run for a while and check on it every once in a while, it's great. And I've looked at the future development of the game. They're looking at adding like planet exploration and sending your colonists on missions to the surface. You have an elevator that goes to the surface that you can't actually use. Like you just click on it and it says currently in development. This game looks like it has a lot of potential. It looks like there's a lot of area for improvement, and it's still receiving regular updates. The last developer blog was on June 12th, so a week ago. And the most recent update to the game was 2 weeks before that. And it's just one guy doing the whole development. So,
yeah, I'm going to look at it once it gets further into early access, or look at it again, I should say. I can't promise I'm going to do a video on it, but
yeah,
it's definitely not a bad game. It's just, for my purposes, it wasn't good. For yours, it is. Yeah. So if you want a game that's essentially a plant, and not a Factorio style plant, I mean, something that you tend to every so often, water it a little bit, copy and paste some colonists.
If you want an idle game that's a little more involved than your typical idle game, this is really good for that right now. But if you're looking for something that's a lot more involved and active, after the first, 30 minutes or so of gameplay, you get enough stuff going on that you can basically just set it and forget it for a while. So, yeah, until they add a lot more content or, future updates, like add improvements or whatever, it's definitely more of a background on the side type of thing as opposed to a main game. But I still enjoyed it, and I'm a sucker for anything sci-fi themed. And I like Dungeon Keeper, so, this is, it's Dungeon Keeper light. There's no combat, at least right now, and stuff like that. But, I like that whole system of mining and creating rooms. And thankfully, this doesn't force you to create, like, a single room for everything. You can make rooms for multiple stuff. You just have to use the appropriate floor tiles for the things. So I'll usually make, like, dual-purpose rooms and just put a hallway tile down the middle to separate them. And it looks pretty good, too. I like it. But yeah, that's my first game, Mercury Fallin. So a game we have both played now.
Yeah. On to my second game, the Watchmaker. Once again, entry into I probably would have liked it better, and for this one, there's a few problems with it. For one, it is a very interesting looking game. This is a very steampunk aesthetic. You are a watchmaker who is in this giant clockwork tower, and things happen. I didn't get that far into the game, and I'll go into that in a little bit. And this is third-person puzzle platformer, and it's very unresponsive on its controls, which made it unspeakably frustrating. It has this mechanic in it where, as your watchmaker, Alexander, I believe his name is, progresses through the level, he's aging rapidly until he hits a checkpoint, which essentially resets his age at about, I think it's 20 or 30. But that's just essentially a glorified timer, so you're being forced to rush through. But there's a lot of timing puzzles. The controls are very unresponsive. He has he jumps about as well as I do. And there's some very frustrating puzzle mechanics because it's at least some of them require taking things from earlier in the level and bringing them through a area. But everything is so busy because there's so much movement that they don't really catch the eye. And then it's not exactly a bug-free game. Let's put it this way. a lot of the platforms, at least early on, are these giant gears that mesh together and they rotate around and do all sorts of watch clock things, you know?
Right.
And more than once, I fell through the meshing of the gears because it didn't quite go through, connect correctly. Or, you know, there was just enough of a gap for him to fall through, which was irritating. The game, since this is a third-person puzzle platformer, there's different things to collect, you know, like you do. And I actually had the game bug out where I was stuck on a menu, and I had to actually Alt F4 because it would bring up the menu and then just hang. And I could hear him aging in the background and the little sprite, essentially Navi, for lack of a better term.
Hey, listen.
Only he's giving very basic advice. Is telling me, you better hurry up and find a checkpoint because I'm about to die of old age when I hit 90. You know, like you do.
Indeed.
So that happened. And also because of how the game is laid out on it's almost open world-ish where you could see further, sections that you need to, deal with later on. But there's some platforms that lead you back to the start and they're essentially one-way jumps. So there was a couple times that I actually accidentally loop back because the game isn't exactly clear on where the fuck you should be going. So, yeah. This feels very much like a budget title. And not the $15 budget title, I should say. It does have some interesting things. It looks like it's going to have some sort of time manipulation on its puzzle elements. Because it has that whole braid mechanic of being able to rewind time and you leave essentially an echo doing things. But I never got far enough for it to really come into play. And the way that they handled the tutorials going into the game was pretty much just a static, you know, you're in the area, it's going to give you a tooltip no matter, you know, what you do. Which led to some confusing things whenever they kept telling me to press a certain button. But it was the wrong button.
Nice.
Or I'd already done an action, and then the tooltip pops up and tells me to do the action. So I do the action and undo what I did, and I couldn't figure out why I wouldn't progress for for a few seconds, you know? It's like, okay, what did I do? Oh, it was delayed. Yeah, I think if they polished this a bit more, it would be a lot more interesting, but as it is right now, it's definitely, I wouldn't say a hard pass, but it's for fans of the genre only. Which is disappointing because it has a very, very interesting style. But yeah, there's some mechanics in there just essentially like a glorified timer.
Yeah.
I wish that they had it where the age actually made some sort of impact to your abilities, but then that would be a lot tougher to balance out. And since it is essentially a timer, you're rushed in certain areas, and because of how the level is laid out, or at least the initial level, if you have things mistimed, then you're kind of screwed.
Right.
But yeah, not a whole lot to talk about here, just because, you know, kind of bounced on it pretty quickly. I mean, not as quickly as some of the other games I played, but was not enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, my next game then is Tarsus. Tarsus is a interesting game that has some neat mechanics and a bit of a weird storyline, but it's really only good for one, maybe two playthroughs, unless you fail and die. But I didn't have any problems completing it in one go.
Yeah, this is something that I've not really dove into that often. I've been meaning to play it, and it's been on actually the Game Club list a couple times.
It's a good game, and it's good for a playthrough. but I don't know how much there's there past that. I won't spoil the story bit. This is mostly a mechanics-based game anyways. The story is fairly simple, and honestly, once you get going, it's pretty predictable. But I still won't spoil it. It's got a couple of neat things in there that do surprise you. The overall, I guess, arc of the story is predictable, but it's got a couple little surprises in there. What happens is that you're on a ship headed for Mars, and there is a disaster on board the ship that kills one of the crew members and essentially sets off a chain reaction of shit's broken, yo. And you have to fix it. You start with 4 crew members, and the goal is to make it to Mars with an intact ship and no one else dying on your crew.
Yeah, good luck with that.
It's 9 rounds, I believe. There are different scenarios that, I guess that's where most of the replayability comes in. There are different scenarios and like a challenge mode that gives you either you have to survive for longer. I think the base scenario is 9 weeks, or 9 turns. But there are challenges where you have to survive for longer, or you have additional starting penalties like less crew members or less food, or it takes more dice to repair things. But anyway, so you have 9 turns, and every turn something breaks, and the farther you go, the more things break every turn. And your crew members have special abilities that if you get certain dice rolls, they have certain skills that they can use. For example, there's a medic, and if you choose to spend a dice roll of 5 on the medic skill, you can heal everybody in one room by 1 health point. So moving between rooms, if you move through a damaged room, your people will take damage, and it depends on the severity of whatever the disaster is to how much damage they can take. I don't think that they can take more than 2 damage when moving through a single room, but, you know, if you're going to move people through a room to focus on something that's a bigger disaster, then, you know, it might be a good idea to move a couple people through, fix the room, and then move the medic in last and have her heal people with her ability. There's 1 crew member that can spend additional dice to heal or repair the hull of the ship, which deteriorates as more and more sections of the ship get damaged. The commander can give extra dice rolls to people, or no, extra dice to 2 people. So you have like a dice pool that you can pull from, and the commander can award bonus dice. And then there's 1 crew member who gets an extra re-roll. So every turn, there's some disasters that happen. You have to decide how you're going to move your crew around. And then the mechanic to fix things and deal with stuff is a dice roll mechanic. And you have a dice pool that you can pull from. You can get up to 5 dice. And that's determined by a combination of what room you're in, because each of the rooms do special things too. Like there's the hydroponics lab. You can spend additional dice to get food points. One of the labs one of the modules is a med bay where you can spend extra dice to heal your person. One of them is, I forget what it is, crew quarters maybe, or something, where you can spend extra dice to get additional dice in your pool on the next round. So, you know, there's a lot of strategery going on. Like, what do I fix? Do I send people here to maybe try and heal them or get some extra food, which comes into play at the end of every round?
Do you have the Russian there yelling about lowest bidders?
No, you don't, but that would be hilarious. So you go into a room and you have your dice that you roll up to 5, and you can spend dice to repair, and there will be a value for the room. So like if the repair value is 10, you'll need to spend at least 10 points of dice. So, you know, if you get 2 5s, then there's your 10. Or if you get a 4 and a 6 or whatever. And then you can spend dice on the room ability. So, you know, healing or food or whatever. You can spend dice on your character's ability. And you can also spend dice to put it in the research pool. And these are sort of like bonuses that you can pull by spending dice that you've stashed away into the research pool. And they can do things like the cheap ones will just do something for 1 crew member or maybe the room that you're in, like reduce the amount of dice that it will take to repair it by like 5, or give your crew member 1 health. And the more expensive they get, they eventually go to like ship-wide things like recovering hull points on your ship, or giving everybody additional dice, or giving everybody additional food, or reducing stress. So once you've done that, moved to all the rooms, rolled all the dice, done all the things, you get to the end of the round where you have to choose how to spend food. And food is the easiest way to recover dice and reduce stress. As the stress levels of your people rise, the more likely that they are to have like psychotic breaks, and they can take additional damage or make a mistake, and increase like the amount of void or stasis dice which you can get, which void dice, they just disappear, and they represent like screw ups that your character made, and stasis dice get frozen and can't be re-rolled. The stress levels can get so high though that they kill themselves or another crew member. So, yay.
Oh, the Dwarf Fortress effect.
One of the twists that the game has is that eventually, when you run out of food, you can resort to cannibalism, and you have the dead crew member from like the tutorial scene as the first character that you can start eating. And if you run out of food and you've eaten him and everyone is starved and stressed, you can actually kill crew members to eat them as well.
So you see who wears the red shirt first?
Indeed, you do. And that was a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a spoiler, but based on how you go about doing that, it can change the ending of the game somewhat. So
I remember this from The Martian.
From the book, yes. It's not in the movie, but it is in the book. They talk about killing and eating crew members.
Yeah, the designated survivor.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, doing that also changes some things about the game for the characters that have eaten other humans, but I won't spoil that part for you. That's the way that they do it is really interesting and well done, and how it works into the mechanics and like constantly reminds you that, oh yeah, this character ate human. But that's basically the game. There are little scenarios at the end of most turns where it's like you choose between this thing or that thing, and they can be simple things like reduce stress or increase the amount of food that you have, or get some free hull repair. There's almost always some sort of negative consequence too. Like one of them is like one of them is called something like extended break, and it's like all the crew members take a little bit of time to rest, but they don't keep up with their maintenance duty, and the ship takes 2 points of hull damage, but everyone stress levels is reduced by 50% or something like that. And they affect different crew members in different ways. Like some decisions will affect all the crew, some will only affect 1 or 2 members. But I mean, it's basically just a risk, or, balancing like the positive versus the negatives of what the thing does. You're not allowed to pass up on those opportunities. You have to choose, but usually it doesn't do too much bad stuff. And yeah, this game was supposed to be like super hard, so I don't know if I got lucky or if I've just played so many strategy games that like figuring out the most effective way to deal with all of the disasters was pretty easy for me. But I got through it in one go in about an hour. And I got to the ending, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that if I had done this differently, I would have gotten this ending. I'm just going to go look it up online. And I went and I looked it up online, and I was completely correct. And I was like, okay, well, that was fun. That was a neat experience. But I'm not really interested in doing the challenge modes, and I know the other ending. So it's a good game, but it's definitely not, in my opinion, not worth the $15 that it costs normally. It's a good,
I think it was on sale for pretty deep discount when I picked it up.
Yeah, according to this,
either that or I got it on a Humble Bundle or something.
According to the Steam enhanced whatever, its lowest price was $2.54 on Steam during a winter sale in 2016.
Yeah, that's probably when I got it.
I mean, it's worth a few bucks. I would say that this game is definitely worth up to $5 just for the few interesting things that it does with the story and the way that it uses mechanics to, the game mechanics to drive home a couple of points, and to help tell the story. It's nowhere near as impactful as like Brothers was. But, you know, it's using game mechanics in an interesting way that you don't normally see. But there's very low replay value here. Very low. Unless you're really into it and want to do the challenge missions. But yeah, I mean, there's 1 to 2 hours probably of good gameplay in there. And I think it's worth, you know, a few bucks.
Okay, so not really a lot to jump in on. So moving along to our shared game.
Indeed. Thorium. I'll let you talk first while I take a drink.
Yeah, Thorium is another one of those that I probably should have liked it more, and for me, I think my big problem with it was just maybe just the robots I picked in the very beginning. So essentially, there is a civil war on Earth. The AI has risen up, has a robot army, and it's fighting the humans. And you're on the robot side for once. Typically for these, you're human, aren't you?
Yeah, usually.
So anyway, you're this battle AI that the robots have created to essentially try to destroy all humans. And I would call this roguelike, where you have a party of robots and you're going through different, essentially dungeons, bases, whatever you want to call it, and JRPG-esque turn-based battles. And it has some very interesting mechanics where the robots kind of bounce off one another. You have a choice of 6 to begin with, and you pick 3. And each one has their own special abilities. And something that's interesting about each one of them is that the game sets it up so that you have a regenerating shield, but your actual damage that you take to the robot itself does not get healed, at least in the early game. So it's more balancing around, protecting your shields. And the healer that I picked actually does replenish shields pretty strongly. And I'm assuming that you could replenish structure later on, right?
I'm not super far. I've played it for about 2 hours, although I haven't lost any structure in any mission yet.
Well, I lost some on one whenever all the enemies decided to gang up on the robot.
Yeah.
But that's probably my biggest problem with this is that, okay, it's at least 3v3, usually somewhere around 3 or 4 on about 4 or 5. And the AI likes to gang up, which actually makes a little bit of sense. But my biggest problem with this game is that it's very easy to lose track of what the fuck is going on because the game has so many buffs and debuffs in it. Yeah. I mean, just a stupid amount. And it was compounded by one of the bots I had also had status effects on it. And the first one I found, I'm not sure if this is static or not. It's roguelike, so it has that chunk-based generation. Is another one that does status effects and spreads the status effects.
Is it the actress robot?
No. Okay, it's different then.
Okay.
Because the one I got had a drone that attacked.
Okay, so yeah. What were your 6 starting robots? Like, you don't...
only ones I remember are the ones I picked, which was essentially, I picked one that was a big tank that was able to, had a lot of shields and
the
was
one
able
with the riot shield?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, I picked that one.
I picked the medic.
Yep, I picked that one too, the mechanic bot.
And I picked pretty much a damage dealer. I can't recall anything special about it.
Is it the warbot, the one with 2 gun arms?
I think so.
Okay, so we picked the same starting team. I think on all the screenshots that I've seen for the starting, those 3 are always the same, but I had different robots on like the bottom row that I've seen on the starting screen. I had one that had like a little drone, which sounds like the one that you found.
Yeah, that's the one. That was my 4th, and between it and the I believe it's the tank one that has essentially a mass stun. Because the game has it set up where it's rows of enemies. So you have the front row, back row. I'm not sure if there's any difference on damage taken or dealt between the rows. It wasn't very clear.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any difference, but like I said, I'm still pretty early in the game.
But it does a mass stun, and in combination with the other bot that had the ability to spread status effects, which stun is a status effect, it was actually pretty devastating. But I was already getting up to 6 or 7 status effects and buffs and debuffs on enemies. And it was making it very tough to keep track of things.
Yeah, the bot that I found is like an actress robot that all of her abilities are based around like charming. So like you'll apply a status effect that like you'll do damage, but it applies like a drain status effect. So you drain shield from an enemy. Or it will like every time you take damage, it'll be reflected back to an enemy. Like all of her abilities are based around interacting. She doesn't actually have a straight up attack.
Yeah, I see my fourth with the drone, he does have a straight up attack, but every time that he attacks something, it also marks the target. So the drone, whenever his turn comes around, will do an auto attack and then he moves. So technically he's getting 2 actions.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, it's very interesting. It's just, it's very tough to keep track of.
Yeah,
and also it felt a little shallow on the outside of combat aspects where, okay, you're pretty much just adding status effects instead of anything else.
Yeah, like interacting with the dungeon, like aside from finding loot.
Yeah, you sometimes find loot, which for some reason you don't always open up the chests.
Yeah, most of them have like a 75% chance to open.
Yeah, you're able to essentially poison the air supply to put a status effect on the humans. You can hack security drones to be able to tell you what's going on further on.
Yeah.
But everything has a very set percentage chance.
Yeah.
Which could be frustrating if you start getting a lot of bad rolls, which I did at one point.
Yeah, and the more bad rolls you get, the more it compounds because you get
there's a
your
threat
own
meter,
status effects. And the more the threat meter rises, the worse your chances are to succeed at certain tasks. So,
and it also makes the enemies more difficult, so it compounds even more. And that's something I really don't like. This is another game that's kind of on the back burner for me to see how it goes, because I believe this is still very early in its early access run.
Yeah. I think it just like released into early June 7th was when it released, so a couple of weeks ago into early access. This is another game that I have as like a background game that runs great on my laptop and can easily be alt-tabbed out of or into as needed, and things like that. And it's turn-based, so there's no rush. And as far as I can tell, there's no penalties for leaving it sitting for very long periods of time. Because I left it sitting for something like 2 hours the other day, tabbed out, while I had a couple of back-to-back client sessions. And then I tabbed back in, and everybody was still standing in the same place in their fight, so...
Yeah, according to this, at day 1 early access, they have 90% of features implemented, 6 of 10 different robot classes, 75% of items, 90% of monsters, a PvP aspect, which I didn't even touch.
Yeah, I did.
The ability to create in levels and community translation, and 90% of the branching story integrated. So it's actually further along than what I was expecting. It sounds like mostly the story stuff.
Yeah, I assume that story stuff has to do with the factions. So as you do missions, the way that you interact with different characters will give you points with different factions. So there's certain factions that prefer peaceful interaction with, say, humans. There's another faction that wants you to kill all humans. So on like the
Bender faction.
Yeah, for me it was the second mission. I don't know if it was the second mission for you too. But there was this group of humans that I ran into, and they're like, "Oh, you can kill them or you can spare them." And there were 2 factions that were talking to me during the mission.
A bunch of engineers.
Yeah, and like I chose to spare them, and the robot that was like kill all humans was like, "Oh, I don't need you as an ally. You suck." And the other guy was like, "Oh, you're awesome. Peace and love, man. Peace and love." And I got faction reputation points with him. And I mean, you can see that as you build rep with factions, they give you different bonuses. But I would assume that story part is integrated with the factions, and you get different story missions as you level up certain factions. Like that's just me assuming, based on what they have said about the development of the game.
Yeah, it looks like there's also some sort of crafting element in the game, because you keep getting crafting parts, but I didn't unlock that.
Yeah, I still haven't unlocked that either.
Yeah, I will say that the different robot parts, it is interesting that, okay, there's different classes, but they don't really show very well, the individual parts outside of just reading them out.
Yeah.
I wish there was a better sorting system for the inventory, and you end up with a lot of parts very quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a tick you can check in the options to automatically sell or dismantle all common items.
No, I didn't see that. So
Yeah.
maybe that's part of my problem.
I kept it turned off for a little while just to like see what some of the variety was, but then I turned that on.
Yeah, and it's also very icon heavy.
Yeah.
For the stats, so there was a lot of going back and forth and mousing over the individual stats to see what they actually are.
Yeah.
And does allow for very intelligent choices on items. So being able to say, okay, what is this icon? Oh, okay, that's my structure. Probably don't want to equip something that lower structure, or that's my shield. I don't want to equip something like that.
Yeah.
Or the trade-off, something that makes me faster. Well, that's a bot that I maybe want to go later in the turn order, because it's the Final Fantasy turn order thing where different initiatives allows the different bots and humans to take turns in varying sorts. So if you want someone to take a turn later, don't put initiative on them.
Yeah. Overall, I like it. It doesn't sound like you like it as much as I do. Like, I mean, it's another game that gets a little bit of a boost because it's, it suits the purpose of what I was looking for. But outside of that, I genuinely like it. And I'm thinking about actually going and, after we're done tonight, like, laying down in bed and playing some on my laptop while I watch a movie or something before bedtime.
It's not a bad base. It's just, it's not very clear yet.
Yeah. That's fair.
And particularly I think the combat's probably the worst part right now, where it's very tough to keep track of what's going on.
Yeah.
Just with so many icons and so many status effects and so many buffs and debuffs. And then you have the enemies that will also throw buffs and debuffs, and it just becomes an icon mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, much like my desktop if I don't clean it off every so often.
Hey-o. It's got mixed reviews on Steam, and most of the negative ones are saying way too many status buffs, like, can really swing a fight one way or another if suddenly you get someone focused with debuffs and then attacked. Like, that seems to be the biggest complaint.
Which is just a balance problem, which, can be fixed.
Yeah, I haven't actually experienced that because I'm using my shield or my tank to taunt every turn, basically, and I'm constantly, like, healing him and buffing him up. So, like, I purposefully have had one bot taking all the damage all the time.
Yeah, see, I didn't use him as so much as a taunter. He would taunt whenever the other bots were taking damage. But there was a couple times where I was, just heavily focused and took some structure damage. I didn't lose anyone, and I'm not sure what happens if I do. But yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, yeah, like I said before, I like it more than you do, but it doesn't sound like you hate it.
It's just I'm frustrated with it.
Yeah, needs some balancing out for you.
Yeah, and it's another one that's probably on the back burner, and I'll check it out later.
Okay. So we both had that one shared. Who goes next, me or you?
Well, let's hear about BattleTech.
Okay, so BattleTech. I'm still playing BattleTech after Game Club. I love that game. It's got a really good shot at being my game of the year. Definitely my Game Club game of the year. I mean, not to say that nothing else could pass it.
Well, we still have 6 more to go.
Yeah, but it's going to have to be real good. Like, BattleTech for me, like I said, was like an A game. So it's going to, whatever comes after, it's going to have to be an A+. But I'm not here to talk more about BattleTech stuff specifically because, we talked about that for forever on our Game Club episode. I've actually been doing a lot of modding within BattleTech. It started out as just simple stuff like going to go and edit applying a couple of mods that remove like the milestone system so that the randomly generated missions don't all become 5 skull missions at the end of the game. And then it was, let me tweak this a little bit. I feel like, these missions should pay out a little bit more, or the difficulty for this should be a little bit more varied, and then there should be more missions actually in each mission. And I'd like to have the Lost Tech weapon available in the store. And before you know it, I've spent 4 hours or so over the last couple of weeks rebalancing all of the weapons.
And then the patch comes out.
Yeah, rebalancing all of the weapons and all of the equipment to make it more in line with the tabletop game. And then that wasn't quite fun to play with just because of the way that the game itself is designed. So I'm currently in the process of rebalancing the entire game. Rebalancing.
Yeah, but I would actually hold off on that.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways, because I've got all of that stuff segregated off. I also did some things like trying to hack my save files and messing with other stuff that I don't quite understand, just sort of a poke it and see what breaks style of learning. And I've broken the game a number of times. So, obviously I've got, my cordoned off stuff that I work with and that I can copy and paste and launch out of that folder instead of the main one that's just the way that I like it. So I've got everything separated, and I'm going to keep pressing on, because unless they completely change the way that the game pulls all of its weapon stats and everything, like all of those files are easily editable, and I can still go in and copy paste if I don't like their balance changes. But they just announced, Harebrained Screams just announced like yesterday or today that their first major update that has more than just some simple bug fixes in it is releasing, and they're completely rebalancing all of the weapons in the game.
Yeah, but most of their balance changes are around heat management and heat generation.
Yeah, which, that's something that I did in my rebalance too, but, I'll see how well it plays. But they also added a lot of other stuff too, or are adding, like an Iron Man mode, and some like advanced difficulty features where that, for example, if you kill a mech by destroying its core, then you can't salvage any parts off of it, period. And I'm definitely not going to play with that, but...
Yeah, which doesn't make that much sense, because shouldn't there be an arm lift or something?
Yeah, arms and legs, or a head. And salvageable weapons and stuff still. Well,
we killed the Atlas. What did we get to scrap? 3 screws, a washer, and... a red stain on the ground.
Yeah, kind of like the Iron Giant at the end of the movie before you see that he's putting himself back together. Just the one screw in the box. That movie's 20 years old, almost.
Yeah, Came but out, Vin Diesel's best voice work.
Well, Groot gives it a run for its money. But anyway, so that's what
I think the Iron Giant could take Groot.
Probably.
Especially if Groot tries to pull a gun. Bad move, Groot.
Groot doesn't use guns, though. He just fights with his tree.
Yeah, but he has a little trash panda that loves pulling out guns.
Yeah. My urban mech is called Trash Panda. Now. Like I've been, I've had trash can, recycle bin, garbage can, garbage pail, and now it's Trash Panda.
I still liked my hunchbacks that I was just naming after different types of gun.
Yeah.
Bazooka Joe, Icebreaker. The next one was going to be Juicy Fruit.
But, so anyways, yeah, I spent probably 6 hours, somewhere between 4 and 6 hours in the last 3 weeks working on modding the game files, rebalancing stuff. I did all of it in one go at first, like that first... Well, the big rebalance, I should say. All the little tweaks I've been doing, like a little bit here and a little bit there, like stuff that I'm already pretty familiar with, but then actually going in and rebalancing the whole game. I did that the first time in one go, and now I'm working on it in little pieces. Because like I said, I tried to make it match the tabletop as closely as possible, and that made it not fun because of how the game itself is designed. So now I'm trying to get it close to the tabletop, but also still fun.
I wonder if the tabletop build will work better with some of the other changes that they're doing.
It might.
Like the stability changes that they're making.
Yeah, the stability changes are interesting, and adding extra evasion.
For those who haven't read the patch notes, essentially they're making it so that the heavier the weight class, the more stability max that they have. And once you go over a certain percentage, you become unstable, which gives you a negative attribute. And then once you hit that max threshold, you fall over and take a boo-boo and take a turn to get up. Well, they're making it so that it's kind of a weird combination where an assault mech has double the stability, but also it doesn't recover as much of a percentage each turn.
Yeah, unless you use
a brace.
Brace, or what's the
bulwark?
Bulwark, yeah. My brain just drew a huge blank there for a second.
And I'm the one that hasn't played BattleTech nearly as much or not nearly as often.
Yeah, it's all right. It happens.
But it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the patch, seeing how it goes.
I think I'm going to wait till they actually do more story content.
Yeah. I got the ballistic weapons balanced pretty well against themselves. Against other weapons in the ballistic class. Balancing the energy weapons is a lot harder. Because you basically have to choose whether or not you're going to balance all of the weapons in the game against the medium laser, or you're going to balance them in their class. But then you could wind up with unbalanced, the weapon classes themselves being unbalanced, so your designs would favor more one thing than the other. But I focused first on the ballistic weapons, because those were the ones in my mind that were the most out of whack. And I've got them set perfectly. I doubled the ammo per ton for every weapon, so don't have to waste as much tonnage on ammo. I reduced the weight of all of the weapons by 2 tons, and then increased the damage of all of them by 10%, rounded up to whatever the even number that is. And that seems to have worked pretty well. Now
the question is, once you get this to a place where you like it, are you going to release it as your first official mod?
I'm going to do that, actually, yeah. That was, so when you, I had already seen the patch, and then you sent me, on Steam today, you were like, oh, hey, BattleTech releasing the patch or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but also kind of a bummer, because I've been working on this rebalance mod for, the better part of 3 weeks. And
I saw I actually saw Quill doing a rundown of it. That's when I first saw the announcement of it.
Yeah. I'm trying, the only thing that I'm stumped with the weapons is the rarity modifier. So that just means that it's either easier or more difficult to find in stores. And things that have a really low rarity, like 0, 1, 2, or 3, are pretty common. But on something that has a really high rarity, whenever you change it down, I haven't been able to find it more readily in the game. So I don't know if I just have been unlucky, or if there's something else that I need to modify besides the base rarity of these weapons. Do you think it may be the different
planets modifiers?
It might be. It's one of those things I'm trying to learn it on my own, but I'm not afraid to ask for help, and I'm not going to spend tons of time. If I can't figure it out, I'll ask. But before anyone asks, have you set them to be purchasable? Yes, I have. I have set their tags to be purchasable, for the Lost Tech weapons.
One other question for you. When you're trying to change these weapons and make them more common, are you saving your edits?
Yes, I am. I'm saving my edits.
All right, that's all the help I could give.
Yeah, so I don't know what's up with that. I haven't really messed too much with the planet tags, because that's a whole other thing. The farther you go, the more complex things get, because everything has a lot more tags and attributes and a lot more interconnectedness. So, I'm not afraid to break things, obviously. I've broken plenty of things on this adventure, but digging into the actual mech stats and digging into the planet stats is very daunting because of how much stuff there is for each one. So,
yeah, I think what I'm going to do is, if I tackle the game again, there's a mod that it looks it's a suite of mods that looks very interesting, which moves the timetable up, adds a lot of more mechs, and it makes it essentially a roguelite.
Yeah, I've seen that mod. The one that makes
I linked it to you.
Yeah.
Where it's there's no story, you're just doing things. And it adds a lot more of events and a lot more weapons, mechs. And I can't recall if it adds another mission type or not, but another mission type or two wouldn't be hard either.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's what I've been up to in BattleTech for the last couple of weeks. I mean, I'm still playing it a few hours a week, like actually playing it. And then the rest of my time playing it has been a combination of modding the game and then playing it to see if it works. Did I break it? Is my balance, the game balancing stuff that I'm doing right? And when I'm finished with it, when I'm satisfied with it, I will release it as an official mod. I'll put it up. But I'm not there yet. I'm not ready. So.
One request for you, if you're able to add things. Flamer ammo.
There's actually is flamer ammo in the game files.
Oh, there
it has got, I haven't actually spent too much time with it because I don't use the flamers. I just balance them around not being able to have ammo. But there is flamer ammo. Let's see.
I wonder if it would be more interesting to have flamer ammo instead of the limited shots. Inherent, because Let's
see. Where's the flamer? I've got these files open in the background right now.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
Well, I mean, I was working on them while we were chatting before we started recording, and I just never closed it. So you can change the amount of ammo that the flamer has by default. It's got a starting ammo capacity of 6. You can change that to whatever you want. Let me go back to the ammo. We're doing it live. All right, so there's an ammo box for the flamer. It is marked as purchasable false. It has a cost of 1 C-bill, a rarity of 0. All right, I'm going to turn this to true.
And then break the game.
It's got a tag in here. Flamer ammo should not be purchasable or available at all. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Flamers should have internal ammo only. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So I guess they don't want you to have flamer ammo. I'm going to set it to true and then just see what happens. So true, rarity 0, cost...
And computer crash.
1,000. I mean, this is just a simple edit. How much ammo is in it? Capacity of 1. Yeah, that's not enough.
Well, that's assuming that, it even has the back end to be able to work still.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an ammo capacity of 6.
Unless you want to continue mod talk.
Oh, no, it's fine. We can move on. I just am going to save that and see what happens next time I try and launch the game.
So, talking about seeing what happens, this was a game that I got on my press account off of Steam, so I don't have it on Steam, which, no big loss there. Cultist Simulator. This is essentially a card game that it would be completely unplayable in real life because it has timers out the wazoo. Essentially, this is a life sim of someone forming a cult to summon Cthulhu, like you do.
Indeed, as you do.
And I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing with this game. I played it for an hour and some change. I think about nearly 2 hours. And it's completely incomprehensible still. There's a lot of trial and error and just filling about, which I found very unsatisfying. Where essentially, as you do events, more cards pop up, but you're on a set timer because as time progresses, you have to spend money to live, like you do.
Indeed.
So you have to maintain your job, which is a constant counter going on and on and on. And it's just incredibly frustrating because there's no documentation of this game whatsoever. And the only way to really understand what's going on is either spend a lot of time with it and fiddle with it. Sort of like some of the older Flash games like Doodle God. where you put two things together and see what happens, and you put two other things together and see what happens. But only with a bunch of timers, a bunch of waiting. There will be events that will pop up that will cost you other things, like health cards that you have to maintain. There's other cards that have a set timer on them, and if you don't use them within a certain amount of time, they'll either vanish or they'll turn into another card. And I imagine if you're dedicated to this and you actually love the theme of this, it'd be a very fascinating game, but I just was not dedicated to it. So it's just completely incomprehensible to me.
Yeah, it looks really complicated. And I've heard a little bit about this game. I think it was mentioned on the Co-optional podcast once, or maybe it was on, excuse me, on Podquisition. But wherever I heard it, they basically said this game is nigh incomprehensible when you start playing it because of how messy everything is, how much stuff there is.
Yeah, it's essentially you handle it like a card game in Tabletop Simulator. Yeah. Only your primary actions all have timers, and they also have cost associated with them. And there's no way to really well sort the things and spend the time to figure out things, because you're always under that stress of, okay, if I don't go into work within the next 30 seconds, which thankfully you can at least pause the timers to be able to look around. Then I'll lose my job, which will cut my source of income, and then I'm unable to explore to be able to find more information about the cult I'm trying to find, or be able to go out to recruit members. I was able to found the cult, but that was about it, and I ended up actually losing because I hit a random event which required a lot more health cards than I had, and I wasn't sure how I was generating them.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many different interactions. And if you look at the Steam screenshots, there's just an absolute mess of cards. This feels like one of those games that the developer made and is probably the only person on the planet that's able to play well.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely looks like it would be a good candidate for that. Does it not have any tutorials or
no tutorial whatsoever? You're thrown in to the deep end.
Oh, good.
Like I said, no documentation whatsoever.
Okay.
No help screen, no tutorials. It's just do things and see what happens, and take copious amount of notes, because there's no way you're going to keep track of everything. And you're able to eventually, I think, send out cultists to do missions, but missions will also probably require other things, and you just see just so much stuff on the Steam store page. I was thinking that would at least kind of ease you into it. No, it does not.
Right.
Which is kind of a shame, because it's an interesting theme, but there's incomprehensible.
Right. Sometimes I'm okay with games throwing you off in the deep end, as long as they have a good learning curve.
Or, some sort of learning curve that isn't a complete cliff, or enough where you can fiddle with it and figure out little bits and pieces. I mean, to be fair, I do like Dwarf Fortress, and that is the same style thing, but you're able to slowly figure out bits and pieces of it. The only way you could do it is with a complete guide, which doesn't feel like the way you should be playing it.
Yeah.
And actually, hang on, let's go over to the guides in this, because this ought to be interesting. Let's see, new player. Oh, that's a video guide, which would be unhelpful. Achievement guide, quick lore study. I mean, there's just all sorts of different guides, which just, should tell you just how complex the game is, which isn't a bad thing, but damn.
Yeah.
The complete guide to Cultist Simulator. Wow, that's a long walkthrough. That is an exceptionally long walkthrough. This feels like a wiki game without a wiki, to be perfectly honest.
The best kind.
No, it isn't.
Or worst kind.
Worst. It's Devolver Digital last year, not this year.
Oh boy. Alrighty.
So,
Are you ready for?
yep.
Is it my turn? Sweet. So I played a couple of mobile games this week too, and I'm moving on to those. The first is HQ Trivia. So
Yeah,
HQ
you've been trying
Trivia,
to get me to play this.
Well, I sent you the link once.
No, Katie sent it to me as well.
Oh, okay. So I mean, what this is it's live trivia that happens most of the time twice a day. Occasionally they only do it once a day, and I've seen like in posts people like occasionally they've done it like 3 times a day, but I haven't been playing when that happens. And typically it's every day at 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Time, also known as Rebel Time in our community. And it's a series of 12 questions that start out really easy and get progressively harder. With, like I said, it's live trivia. They have a live host. There's a live chat, and you can see as players drop off after they get questions wrong and then leave the game and stuff like that. They've got 2 or 3 different hosts that they rotate who does it, and they're all pretty cheesy. Lots of bad puns and stuff like that. So
you love it.
I love it. Yeah, it's typical, game show host type of stuff. Aside from the live trivia, you can actually win real money that can be really deposited into your real PayPal account. And they get huge sponsorships because of the amount of live viewers and engagement that they have. For the NBA playoffs a few weeks ago, they had increasing money like pots every night that whatever team, I don't know anything about basketball, whatever team LeBron James was on, like every night that they won a game.
Oh, that's the one with the puck, right?
Sure. Every night that he and his team won a game, the amount that you could win went up by $100,000. And at the end, the last night, it was like a $400,000 prize. And it gets split by everybody who wins. So, most of the time, players win like $2 or $3.
Have
but
you
for
won
these,
anything?
No, so far I haven't won anything. I've gotten to the last question 2 or 3 times. So the way that the question difficulty increases is like the first 3 questions are really stupid. It's like, what is the third number? And it's like Q3 brown.
Basically, it's a CAPTCHA.
Yeah. It's get rid of the bots that play and get rid of the people who are like super trolls. And the first 3 questions are like that. And then the next 3 questions are really simple trivia, sort of like general knowledge stuff. And then the next 3 questions are more specific trivia. And then the final 3 questions are ridiculously specific, difficult trivia. And I regularly get through the first 9 questions. There's been a few times that I've gotten out on an easier question. I just didn't know it. But I regularly get through the first 9 questions, and then 10, 11, and 12 is usually where I get out. But I'm so close. I've gotten so close a few times. You can get extra lives, which allow you can be used once per game. So if you miss a question, you can keep going with your extra life. But you're not allowed to use the extra lives on the last question. So there's that, which, that makes sense why that they would do that, but it still kind of sucks because I've had extra lives a few times and been like, oh my god, I missed the last question. If I could just use my extra life, I could win. But there are a few, like, you can check the leaderboards. There are a few people that have won like $25,000 in total. I assume that's either like a group of, yeah, or a group of people who are like all working together at the same phone during like the really big payout nights that they do, or big payout games they do every once in a while when they get a big sponsor. Typically the prize pool's $5,000. But like they were sponsored by Ocean's 8, and that night it was $88,888.
At 88 cents?
Unfortunately, no. No, they didn't do the 88 cents. I was very upset about that. Trust me.
I didn't commit to it.
Yeah. But it's a fun experience. Katie and I have been playing most every night. Occasionally we miss a night, but we play most every night. My mom plays too. On Fridays, you can see what your friends vote. I wish that feature would be all the time. But, friends, anybody that you add or, sends your friend request, like you can see the answer that they pick. And that's fun. But yeah, I wish that was turned on all the time. But it's fun. It's just trivia. you know? I missed tonight's trivia, obviously, because we were recording, but I got the notification on my phone, and I was kind of sad for a minute. And I'm always really excited when I get to play in the middle of the day, because at 3 o'clock, like, my afternoon clients, I usually schedule my flaky clients for the afternoons. So, you know, if they don't show up, I get to go home early or have extra time to do my
Now,
paperwork.
flaky, are we talking about mentally or habitually?
Yes.
And?
So occasionally I get to play in the afternoon, and that always makes me really happy. But yeah, I mean, it's just fun, simple trivia with really cheesy hosts, and I'm okay with both of those things. So yeah, it's HQ trivia. What about you? What's your next game?
Well, for me, Google has actually been pestering me with money. All right.
Okay.
The last, I would say, 2 or 3 months, I've gotten an email from Google saying, "Here, have $2," repeatedly, to the point that I have like $20 in my Google Play account between that and surveys. So I finally decided, fine, you want me to spend you want me to spend the Google money? I'll spend the Google money, because it's not money to me, and I'm not going to attach a payment option to Google Play. So I decided to get essentially the upgrade to a game I talked about ages ago, Motorsport Manager 2.
Nice.
And it's actually a lot better. For one, you're actually competitive from the very beginning. I haven't gotten too far into it. I'm still on the first championship. But it's a lot more manager-like, where you have a lot more, essentially, dials to turn. Where you're able to tweak the cars, you're able to buy individual parts for depending on the championship or the series that you're running. Certain parts may be spec parts where you have to use these parts, but then other parts are upgradable. Like in the first championship, the spec parts are the engine and the gearbox. We're able to upgrade suspension to get better suspension or more reliable suspension. And where the reliability kind of plays in is, as your drivers race, they have a chance to take damage. And the more reliable parts, the higher that essentially pool of damage is. And it seems like you take less, because I have one car that's a lot more reliable than the other, and it's crashed out a lot less, where it hasn't had to come into the pits as often for repairs. So there's that already. All the drivers have their individual traits that they could acquire or lose during races. Like I have one driver that my secondary driver is absolutely shit, or he was, to the point where he had a couple races where he came in last. So he ended up getting very discouraged, to the point where he was taking a penalty to his stat points for coming in last so often, and wouldn't lose it until he was able to, get out from the basement, essentially, of the grid. So there's a lot more interesting things going on here. And it seems like as the game progresses through the different series, the different types of cars, different rule sets are going to come in. Like right now, I could see the ability to change the amount of fuel I have or refuel during the race, but I don't have that option in this particular series I'm in, because that racing with refueling is disallowed. I have to take all the fuel I carry at the very beginning, and that also enters into the dilemmas, where certain dilemmas may increase your fuel efficiency or make it so that your tires wear more. And taking it where you have less fuel efficiency could actually make it so that, because the cars default to the number of laps that they carry fuel for, if you have a less efficient car, you may either have to cut down the engine a bit, make it run a little bit leaner for a time, or have to run the risk of running out of fuel if you have a poor driver, or a lot greater risk. It's a very interesting thing going on. And I've really enjoyed it so far. It's a good distraction. Yeah, once again, it's very passive on its decisions. Yeah, and then there's a lot of sitting around and watching races, but they go by fairly quickly, and you're able to fast forward for a good chunk of it. Pit strategy is still a thing, but it's actually more involved now where you have different, you have a lot more choices on your gear ratios and, your, aerodynamics. And you also, in later races, will be able to, refuel more fuel, which will also weigh down the car. And, there's a lot more, like I said, dials to turn in, this one than the original, which feels very much like a demo. So I've really enjoyed it so far.
Nice.
Not a lot more to talk about, really. I mean, it's, if you ever played the first one or essentially the Steam version of it, you've probably played this one, but it's, well, when I picked it up, it was $2 something. It was on sale.
Yeah.
Right now it's $4, which is, it's a little steep for a mobile game, but it's not bad.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you liked your mobile game.
Yeah, my first bought game, which didn't cost me a damn thing because Google kept pestering me.
Well, I too had Google send me a thing that was like, here's some Google Play Store credit, and I got $2. Plus,
so you got it as well.
Yeah. Plus, I had some money from doing the Google surveys, just like $1 or something in my Google Play wallet. And so I've been looking for mobile games to play, like I said, at work on my downtime. And You Must Build a Boat, it was on there for $2.99. I've played You Must Build a Boat on PC, and I think I've even talked about it on the show, but if I did, it would have been a long time ago. But I've always felt like this would be a good game to have on mobile. I mean, it's basically just a match 3 type puzzle game. It's got a few more extra things beyond just like matching the stuff. But at its core, it's a match 3 puzzle game, and those perform pretty well on phones. So I bought it, and I've been playing it on my phone, and it plays really well. Not only does the match 3 mechanic transition perfectly to a touchscreen, but due to its pixel art art style, and it's like cute, quirky little 8-bit soundtrack and stuff. I mean, it plays really well on my phone, and it still looks great when it's scaled down, and it still sounds great. So it's just a lot of fun. The sort of additional beyond match 3 stuff that You Must Build a Boat does is that you build a boat, and as you go through the dungeons, and complete the little quests and get new people to come on your boat, mostly monsters, or there's like zombies and mummies and ghouls and etc.
Oh my.
Those guys come on your boat, and then occasionally you get humans that open like shops where you can upgrade your weapons and items and get new abilities to have during your dungeon runs. And your boat slowly starts to grow, and once you complete all of the quests for a specific dungeon, you move on. And I assume eventually you get like a sail or something, but in the beginning, everyone just like jumps and uses the power of, kinetic energy to jump.
No. It uses the power of video game logic.
Yeah, the power of video game logic to jump your boat up the river. And then you'll get to a point where the current's too fast and they can't go forward anymore, so they'll drop anchor, and you'll have to, go to the next dungeon and build your boat bigger and get more people to jump as you go upstream. And of course, the dungeons get progressively harder, and every run, you can't lose. Even when you lose, it flashes up and it's like, you win! And it just tells you how far you made it in the dungeon, and just gives you a total of all the things.
The power of positive reinforcement.
Indeed. But, it tells you how much money you collected, how much brain power you collected, and how much brawn you collected, which are all used to upgrade the various things. And then occasionally you get special items, which are used to perform like super upgrades on your weapons. I mean, it's a very simple game, a very simple concept. It's got just enough stuff layered on top of a match 3 to make it really fun. And I mean, a run usually takes, from opening the app to completing a single run is like 3 to 5 minutes. And then additional runs only take usually a minute or two before you die. I mean, it's got this risk reward mechanic. The more quests you take on at the same time, the tougher the dungeons are, but the rewards are higher, meaning you don't have to grind as much to move on to the next area. But, it's quick to pick up and play. It's a lot of fun. And I enjoyed this game on PC, and it transferred really well to a mobile device. I'm not sure if it would play as well on a tablet compared to a phone.
Just because of swiping area?
Just because of the swiping area, and then you would have to use two hands. It might be a little bit awkward to play that way. Like, just using one hand on my phone is fine, just like flicking with my thumb. But I'm not sure if it would work better on a sort of an in-between screen, like on an iPad or something like that. But I haven't played it there, so, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a fun game. I like it a lot. You Must Build a Boat. I think it's like $2.99. Since I have now purchased it, I can't see the price of it. But their other game, 10 million or 10 billion, is $2.99. It's basically the same game.
Yeah, only with a dungeon theme to it, or more dungeon of theme.
Yeah.
But I think that wraps us up. So time to jump in the elevator to go to the news floor.
Indeed.
Well, take a break in the elevator, of course.
I was going to say, are we going to take a break before we go discuss a few news topics?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we are back from our break and ready to move on to the news. And the first news topic of the night, Sony faces growing Fortnite backlash at E3 and also afterwards.
Yep. This was originally grabbed actually from the BBC. Shit is going down was the BBC covering this.
Yeah.
But pretty much, this is something that Sony has been doing behind the scenes for a while, but it's really come to the forefront with Fortnite coming to the Switch, is that any account or third-party account that's attached to Sony, the Sony platform, well, I'm going to use Jim Sterling's term here, gets infected and put in quarantine, essentially. And you cannot use it for any other platform. Or at least any other console. I'm not actually sure if it could use it on PC or not.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I've only seen people really talking about the Xbox and Switch. But essentially, this has really come to the forefront with Fortnite going to Switch, in that a lot of people were wanting to try it for the portability on the Switch and found that they couldn't use the account that they've been using on their PlayStation. And are rather pissed about it. And Sony's made some very shit statements. I think shit is a good term here. On this other article, which I'm bringing up, it's on the Eurogamer one. They said, also the Sony dev says PS4 console cross-platform block is all about the money, but duh.
Yeah, so
it's actually the TechCrafter one that I was looking for.
Yeah, well, it says right here that they have cross-play with PC, Mac, iOS, and Android. So I would assume that means that your account is fine on those devices. It's just the other consoles.
Yeah. We're always open to hearing what the PlayStation community is interested in to enhance their gaming experience. With more than 80 billion monthly active users on the PlayStation Network, we built a huge community of gamers who can play together on Fortnite and all online titles as long as you pay. Oh, wait. I may have added that last bit. We also offer Fortnite crossplay support to PC, Mac, iOS, and Android devices, expanding opportunity for Fortnite fans on PS4 to play with even more gamers on other platforms. As long as they're not other consoles, then we're going to cock block you. Oh, yep. Wait. May have added that last bit as well. But, it's very anti-consumer. Not to say that Sony is completely the only dicks here, because Microsoft pulled the same shit last console generation. And part of this is also Sony trying to get back at them. because they're the top dog now after Microsoft dropped the ball. So, the entire console situation is just a bunch of dicks, being dicks to one another. And it's gamers being caught in the crossfire of dick waggling, which is, well, first of all, got you pretty aroused right now, I imagine.
Absolutely. I'm just waggling my dick. It's great.
But it's just drives me bonkers that gamers put up with this. But it's a closed platform, so what are they going to do other than build a PC?
Yeah, and Sony never said anything about this. So even...
Never said anything about this. It's not on Epic's side either, where they say anything about it when you're connecting your accounts. There's no big warning. Hey, you're about to lock down your account. You sure you want to do this? And this is people that spent money, and for some of these people, a hell of a lot of money. And
Epic is saying that they can't do anything about it. I haven't seen an explanation why. I assume it's legal, part of some contract or something that they signed to get it on PlayStation.
Either that or something on the Sony's back end that flags their account. Some sort of exclusive or something that you can't take off the account, which is a possibility. But then it wouldn't allow PC, Android stuff, so maybe it's just legal things.
Yeah, who knows?
It's just very frustrating.
Fortnite jumped last year to beat PUBG to PS4, so they might have agreed to something really shitty.
Yeah.
In that deal to be first to PS4, and then just haven't said anything about it and hoped for the best,
Yeah.
Epic Games is not, like some darling,
Yeah, there's
None
a lot
of these
shit.
companies are.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit going around.
I would say that Sony is the worst of the two of them, if that's the case, but Epic Games is not completely off of the hook because they still agreed to it. If that's the case.
Yeah. It's just, this is more of a warning to everyone that, these game companies are not your friends. And Sony's been actively blocking crossplay for quite some time now. But, like I said, Microsoft did it last console generation, so maybe Nintendo will do it next console generation. Nah, that requires them to actually catch up.
They're doing pretty well for themselves.
I know. I'm joking. Nintendo's actually done very well. The Switch is caught fire.
It's so weird to think too that we live in a world where that Nintendo is the one playing nice with everybody else, and Sony is the one that's not.
Well, as long as you're not a content creator.
Well, yeah, but I just mean like on this sort of cross-play, opening up their platform to indie devs and stuff like that. Like, Nintendo's kicking Sony's ass in both of those respects.
Yeah, most of what the Nintendo conference was when it wasn't Super Smash Brothers was the list of indies that was coming.
Yeah. And that just feels so weird to see. Like, 5 years ago, hell, 2 or 3 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case with the Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo was a very locked platform on the Wii and Wii U, to be fair, for a pretty good reason. I mean, even though the Switch still has its oddities on the controls, it's a lot more of a standard control mechanism than the Wii and Wii U had.
Maybe they're finally starting to get it.
Maybe.
Get with it.
Oh, well, not completely, because look at how they're handling their online schemes. Ugh.
Yeah, well, Nintendo's got a Nintendo something up, right?
Yeah, true. How about we just get a PC and be done with it?
Oh, wait. We already do. Oh, I gotta take a drink of water. I was thirsty.
Yeah, I do hope that eventually we see, a consistency with crossplay, where all the consoles are able to crossplay with one another, and Sony or Microsoft, whoever is being the dick at the time, stops that. Because that's the only thing that they're doing, is creating a lot of bad will and driving players to the other console in the next generation.
Yeah, I think if they all just go crossplay, they won't be able to pull back from it. So if we ever get them all there at the same time, they'll probably all stay that way for at least a while. I mean, companies can do...
Yeah, at least a console generation. The main problem with it is the mentality of money on the table, where they see that there's a possibility that if they do crossplay, somebody may not buy their console because, they may just think, oh, well, I could just get this other console. But it's a mentality that I think a good chunk of the executives need to step away from. But that's also really driving the monetization schemes that we're seeing in these games. And that's, making stupid amounts of money. So, of course, they're not going to drop it.
Yeah, I mean, what you need to sell consoles these days, for the most part, are good first-party titles. Like, I mean, exclusives...
Maybe somebody should tell Microsoft that.
Exclusives to some extent, like, I have problems with them. But in order to keep the market competitive... First-party developed titles, I don't have a problem with being exclusives.
I mean, I understand why they exist.
Yeah.
And for exclusive titles, for first-party, I understand why they exist as well, because they allow a lot more polish and a lot more time. They could be the loss leader for a console.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's making me want to buy a Switch. Like, there are enough first-party titles on that now that catch my fancy, that I'm willing to spend the money on it. Whereas the PS4, there's not. I'm not interested in buying one because there's only a couple of games that I want to play on PS4 that either I can't play, that I can't play anywhere else, or, I'm interested enough to get into. So,
I mean, to be fair, at least for me, the entire crossplay problem is a non-problem because I don't like playing that much online, and I'm not going to pay them for the privilege.
Yeah.
Which still just seems ridiculous. I realize that they do give you perks, but at the same time, you can get these games on sale that they're giving you a lot of times for less than what the entire subscription is, right?
Yeah. A lot of times you can.
I mean, there are the exceptions, but still, just weird. That's what I get for being a PC gamer. First world problems.
Yeah. Cheap games, a greater variety than any console platform could ever give you. Superior graphics and frame rate.
Well, when the game is optimized.
Yeah, but you can at least power through if a game's not optimized.
Not me.
You can try to anyways.
Not me. I need the new computer for that, which got put on the back burner with the move.
Yeah, fair play.
So moving along?
Indeed, moving along to our next news topic, which I have to scroll to.
West Virginia tourist sites see massive traffic after Fallout 76 reveal.
Indeed. So this is your topic for the show.
Well, this was also brought up in our Discord, but it's a weird thing here locally. For those who don't know, I live in the state of West Virginia. And for those who also don't know, yes, West Virginia is a state. It happens to be west of Virginia, hence the name. And it's gotten a stupid amount of attention here. I mean, the subreddit for West Virginia, which, yes, there is a subreddit, is just completely covered in Fallout stuff. And locally, I've heard people talking about a Fallout that I know are at least, not on the cutting edge of technology to almost downright technophobic. So it's just bizarro land that Fallout is that big here. And hearing people talking about it that I know have no connection to gaming whatsoever. And I can understand why there's that excitement about it, in that, at least on the surface, it appears to actually be fair to West Virginians. Not to say that the stereotype is not without merit, because stereotypes usually have at least some basis in reality, right?
Yeah.
But it's been interesting, and because of how fair it's been, it's driven a lot of interest in the state. And I do think at least some of this may be, people that are excited about the game in general and wanting to see what some of the attractions that they could visit are, and not tourists wanting to visit the state. But it's also shown some interesting things about the state and some of the lore of the state, some of the myths and possibilities of vacations. And the state on the official level hasn't made, any real attempts to try to cash in on this attention yet. I'll be shocked if they don't do something. But it's been an interesting thing. I just did not think Fallout 76 was going to be this massive. At least here, I should say. But there's also kind of that kind of oddity where, since the game is online only, a lot of the people that are talking about this game aren't even going to be able to play it. And not even just the lack of online connectivity, but the lack of infrastructure in the state as well. There's that weird juxtaposition, that, the irony of it all. But this is just so weird. They've gone from average 2,000 visitors a day to 30,000 on one West Virginia tourist site. Just an over tenfold increase.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Pretty neat too, though.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you the power of video games. To be fair, like I said, I don't think all this is people that are interested in, visiting the state. I do think at least some of it are people that are, trying to figure out the map and see, landmarks that could be in the game. But still, it's, a driving force.
Yeah.
Boy, are they going to be disappointed when they get to the state, though, and wanting to visit, and it's not nearly as green as it is in the game.
It's more black with coal dust.
Yeah, more of a brownish color. And also, I didn't see any mountaintop removal in the game.
Did you say mountaintop removal?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's an actual thing. Some of the coal mining operations here, instead of digging into the mountain, decide, let's decapitate it.
Nice. I guess. Actually, that's terrible.
Yeah, it is terrible.
It's just destroying nature. Because I'm one of them SJW hippies. Nature should be preserved.
Fucking snowflake.
I used to not be very environmentally conservative. Like,
well, that's
bleeding
the thing.
heart liberal in every other area, but my thing was always like, fuck this planet, let's just get to space and then we don't have to worry about it. But it's quite clear that if we don't take care of our planet, we're not going to make it to space at this rate, so...
Well, you're not going to join the Space Force?
Oh my god, let's not start on that. Again.
But to be fair, maybe it's just that you haven't changed that much. It's just the political climate in the United States has shifted so much.
Yeah.
Because there is that as well.
There is definitely that. So...
but yeah, this is just, a fascinating thing to me. And just locally as well. Hearing some of the older people that hang around the apartment complex and talk, and hearing them talk about Fallout is weird.
Yeah. It must feel sort of like when my dad started talking to me about Bitcoin.
I imagine so, actually.
I said, how do you know what this is, Dad? Well, they were talking about it on the news.
Yeah, I had to ask, Fallout? You're talking about Fallout?
Nice. Well, maybe they'll get a little cultured. I mean, my hopes aren't up, but maybe they will.
But to be fair, to be able to play it, they have to have the online connectivity, so maybe not.
Yeah. So, our last news topic of the night.
And yes? This is your topic, yeah?
Indeed, the WHO, that's World Health Organization, makes gaming disorder diagnosis official. So back in
December?
Was it December? I thought it was a little bit earlier than that last year.
I was about to say December, November, somewhere in there. It was late last year.
Yeah, sometime late last year, the WHO announced a proposal or released a proposal for like a first draft of a video gaming disorder. I think it was originally called online gaming disorder. But they have made that official now, and it's going to be in the next revision or the next version of the ICD, which is the WHO's big, essentially code book for all health-related diagnoses. So it includes medical and mental health diagnoses. And it will probably make its way into the next version of the DSM, which is the diagnostic and fucking shit, I just forgot the name of my own thing. The Diagnostic and Statistician Manual. The big book of disorders that we have. God damn, my brain is like fried tonight. I've even got my pocket DSM sitting on the bookshelf next to me. I could just grab it and look at it and read it, but fuck it. I'm just gonna forget what it's called for a minute. But it'll probably wind up in the revised version of the DSM 5 is what we're at now. So 5R for revised.
What, not 5.1?
No.
Not like Dungeons and Dragons.
Nope. There was the original DSM, then there was the DSM revised edition, then there was the DSM 2,
Electric
2 revised, 3 revised, 4 revised, 4 revised second edition, then 5. And we're due for a revised edition of 5 in the next year or so. It's usually every 5 or 6 years that they do a revision. And I suspect this will make it into the DSM. But I mean, basically what this is an addiction disorder that specifically relates to video games. It has all of the same criteria for any other addiction. You spend a significant portion of your time doing this above your other responsibilities. It's negatively impacting your life so that you have difficulty functioning at work or school or in your family environment. And you constantly, or despite negative consequences, you continue to participate in this activity, which meets the diagnosable criteria for any addiction, period. There's been some backlash to this. People are saying like, oh, this isn't, like you should focus more on more serious mental health disorders and things like that. Like this is already covered under, addiction diagnosis. And technically that's correct. You can just mark it as other, other addiction, disorder. And then that covers a wide variety of things that aren't specifically covered by like alcohol and drugs or gambling. But the bigger things that become more prevalent, do oftentimes get their own individual diagnosis. And oftentimes most addictive behavior is masking or it is a symptom of some other type of disorder. Not always, but lots of times it is. People suffer from depression or anxiety, so they drink or they do drugs, or because of it, they're more susceptible to gambling because of the feel-good endorphins that get released when you win at gambling. And gaming fills that same role, as do certain things, so that, other activities like exercise or any other hobby that you could say that someone was spending way too much time on that they needed to. So I see both sides of the argument. Personally, I come down on the side of it's good to have this specific diagnosis. In my opinion, I think it's good to be as specific as possible when you're diagnosing someone. I don't find it helpful at all whenever someone comes in and they've been previously diagnosed with like 4 or 5 disorders, when those 4 or 5 disorders, like the shared symptoms between them or the combination of all the symptoms, actually fits another thing more specifically and more properly. So being able to specify, this person's addictive behavior is down to video games in a way that is much easier for any clinician who is following me, who sees this person after me, is helpful. Because I can write notes in their chart all day long, but honestly, most of the time, unless you're paying big bucks to go to some really expensive, nice, first-rate facility, the turnover rate for clinicians and the amount of people that just come through any of these organizations on any given day is massive. And if a professional takes more than 5 minutes to pay time to your chart for, anything other than like the big things, then they're doing, they're going above and beyond what they're able to do at their job most of the time. So having this specific diagnosis to be able to put in the list of diagnoses means that someone who only has 5 minutes to go over your chart is going to be able to see, okay, they've got this, and it's, this is a symptom of their overall, whatever their other disorder would be. So having these specifiers, being able to basically put them in big bold letters on the chart is really helpful. And, it sucks that that's the type of environment that we wind up in a lot of times with this, but the population who is most likely to experience gaming addiction, or issues with video games in general, is almost certainly going to be in the middle to lower middle class, even like people at or below the poverty line. Because video games can be an expensive hobby, but to get into it at the bare minimum is fairly inexpensive, and a group of people can go in together and purchase and share this thing, and video games will and the hardware that they played on last for quite some time.
Well, I was thinking even mobile gaming.
Yeah, and mobile gaming. Everybody's got a smartphone nowadays. Even people that you would assume like are too poor to have one, because that's just become a part of everyday life. So, I see quite a few homeless people now, and they almost always have a smartphone. Just because they're everywhere, they're cheap, just because they're all over the place, and these people play games on them. So pretty much everyone has access to games, and it's nice to have this diagnosis as a way to, again, add like a quick specifier to their chart. They have an issue with gaming, a gaming addiction, and it would be a subset more than likely to another disorder, but that's just some extra information that whoever the next person is that sees their chart is going to be able to put together as part of their own diagnostic formulation and treatment plan. So I think it's a good thing overall.
And I don't have anything to add to that.
Indeed. The West Virginia was your topic, and this was my topic. So do you have any questions or anything like that?
Not really. It says hazardous gaming. Is that a different entry on this, or is this going for 2 entries? It was very clear, at least this one article. Or is that their overall umbrella, and they're going to refine it in the 4 years before this revision comes out?
My guess is that that's their overall sort of general umbrella, and they're going to whittle it down or refine it to a more specific, not necessarily diagnosis, but a more specific wording with it.
You gotta love the quote from the ESA from this. The Entertainment Software Association said the move recklessly trivializes real mental health issues like depression and social anxiety disorder. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're a little bit concerned about that because it may be, linked to other gaming things that we've talked about that's addictive.
Indeed, yeah. Certain boxes of loot
you mean
and
loot,
transactions
loot box coin?
of micro. Yeah, loot box coin. So, yeah, when I read this or read that quote from them, I did just kind of sigh and hang my head for a second. Of course.
Like we said, the gaming industry are not your friends. So
yeah, I mean,
it's so weird that the biggest entertainment industry is so anti-consumer at times, adversarial.
Yeah. Both of those things.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's their air quotes job to, manage the PR of gaming, the gaming industry in general.
Well, they're not doing a very good job at it.
I kicked something under my desk and something's turned off, but my computer obviously didn't turn off. So
well,
I just
considering you couldn't hear me for a moment, I'm assuming that it did do something.
Yeah. Let's see.
We were talking about how the game industry is not your friend and is kind of a jerk to their consumers.
Yeah. Yeah, they suck. They suck big dicks. Big nasty dicks. But no, what I was saying was that, it's their job to manage essentially PR of the gaming industry, but it just it makes me a little bit disgusted, like when they try and trivialize issues, any aspect of mental health, any aspect of potential addiction, or just any sort of negative behavior by anything is important, and video games can contribute to that just like anything else when they're used as a crutch or as a shield or to escape from reality. So, and
especially since mental health and your profession in general is not exactly looked upon with a lot of praise in this country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you're going to a therapist? What, are you crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that so much from people. Like, they'll come in and start telling me about something. It's like, I'm not crazy. It's like, no, you're not crazy. You're right. This is very common. Many people suffer from depression or anxiety or whatever. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help.
Out loud. Now, if you have a Chihuahua on your shoulder.
There's very little judging that goes on, but every once in a while, yes, there is some judging. Dear listener, there was a lady who came into our office the other day, and she had a Chihuahua riding on her shoulder like a parrot. And she knew the letter of the law about service animals, and she went off on my office manager when she went over to question her about why she had a Chihuahua on her shoulder. And my office manager just was like, fuck it, I'm not gonna fight this. If anything happens to your dog while you're at our office, we're not responsible. Because your dog is riding on your shoulder like a parrot.
Well, obviously, since she knows the letter of the law, there's been some issues.
Indeed.
I mean, that's not something that you go into lightly.
No. But it was, yes, I did judge this lady a bit. I will admit, I had a human moment where I judged someone as crazy because they had a Chihuahua riding on their shoulder like a parrot.
And carrying a blind person stick.
She was, but she very clearly could see. But, yeah, she was like looking at her phone and doing stuff the whole time. But then when she would walk, she would use the, whatever they're called, the blind person stick to tap the floor in front of her. It was weird.
You so wanted that case, didn't you?
It would have been interesting, but I suspect it would have been very difficult. She was very argumentative and combative and defensive. So that would not have been a fun case for long. I would have definitely asked a bunch of questions about the Chihuahua parrot.
I'm just assuming that she steam cleans it now.
Yeah.
Because you said she was a hypochondriac, which I realize is not a germaphobe, but there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a hypochondriac. She had many things wrong with her, according to her. Many, many things. Some of the things that were wrong with her aren't real things.
Oh, really?
Like a concrete allergy.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, she said she had a concrete allergy. That's not a thing.
Question.
Answer?
How the fuck does she live in society if she has a concrete allergy?
I'm not sure. I have no clue.
Does she live out in the woods or something? Because there's concrete all over the fucking place.
No, she lives somewhere in Chattanooga. Like, I've actually seen this lady walking around on the street a couple of times.
With the Chihuahua?
Yeah, with the Chihuahua. I didn't realize what it was as I was driving past, but, it's the right shape and size to be the Chihuahua. And I suspect I'll see her again. So she lives somewhere nearby the clinic.
So maybe your clinic's in some sort of weird place where they banned concrete.
I don't know what that stuff is that I walk on every day from the car lot to the clinic. But it looks like concrete. It feels like concrete.
Now, does it taste like concrete?
I would not taste that for... Well, no, I would. I was going to say I wouldn't taste that for $1 million, but I would lick that concrete all the way from my car door to the door to the clinic for $1 million. You bet your ass I'd do it. But I wouldn't do it for like $100.
Well, to get it back to West Virginia, there's near the Green Bank telescope, there's also a little commune of crazy people who are allergic to Wi-Fi. And,
nice.
And you hear about that every so often, where because of the sensitivity of the telescopes. So I imagine it's her version of Wi-Fi allergy.
Yeah, that's probably.
Or she just has a bad case of nocebo.
Yeah,
which is the evil twin of placebo.
Yep, it's never a dull moment. There are multiple interesting things that happen every week at my clinic. Every week. Many of them I can't share for confidentiality reasons.
Yeah, but every so often you have a Chihuahua lady.
Yeah, that has to be shared with the world. I took a picture. If anybody's interested, I will share the picture, maybe on our Discord server.
Maybe blur out her face if you're that worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What's next? Community Corner?
Community Corner. It is. And letter first?
Indeed. We have a rather lengthy letter from Ghost Shark. So this one's from a couple of weeks ago. He sent it to us after we recorded the last normal episode, and then we had the bonus episode, and then we had E3. So this is a 2 or 3 weeks old, but better late than never, right?
We scraped the mold off of it. It's fine.
Indeed. Better late than never. Here's Ghost Shark.
Greetings, everybody. Yeah, I'm stealing that intro from Kyle. Sorry. Anyway, this is Ghost Shark, and I am calling in not from the interstate, but from a parking lot in my car. I figured since it's been a while, I'll send in a review for a game I've been wanting to talk about for a little while. And since Rage also hit me up about another one I've been playing recently, I'll go ahead and give you a twofer. So 2 reviews and 1 audio letter. Here we go. The first one's going to be Mafia. Mafia 3, to be precise. And I'll start off by asking you this. Do you hate racists? Do you wish that you could punch racists in the face without the threat of going to jail? Then if so, if you answered yes to both of those, then this game is for you. Alright, all seriousness, Mafia 3 is a pretty good game now that it's had the chance to work out a bunch of the bugs and stuff from the initial release. It is nowhere near the pile of crap that it was when it first came out. It's actually a pretty decent game. Let me bring up my notes here, because now I'm about ready to go off the cuff, and that's a bad idea. So, it's very GTA-esque in its open world design, if it's, smaller than GTA. Race does play a really huge issue in this game. In case anybody doesn't know, you do play as a young black man fresh out of Vietnam coming back to his town, and everything goes haywire. And you start a path of vengeance all the way up to the top of the mafia there, to the guy who ordered the whole thing to begin with. It's plays just like something out of an old B movie from, the 70s era of films and stuff. Just a good classic man on a mission kind of idea. So there are still a few glitches to it. Mainly I found a few physics bugs where I ran down a set of stairs and a chair followed me down and was rolling non-stop in the doorway just down from the stairs. And it kept doing it for a good 30 seconds while I watched it, and it was doing it as I was walking away as well. So there's been a few issues of falling through. I think I fell through a floor one time, but a few issues with cars. But that being said, there have been pretty few and far between for my, I don't know, I think I have about 12 or 13 hours in it. It's a fun game. It's probably not stream material for me per se, but it's definitely something that I will get back into and finish. A note about the race, though, it does, like I said, it does play a big part in it. For instance, the areas that you start out in, it is a predominantly black area, and anywhere in the city where you commit crimes, depending on the severity of the crimes, you can get the police called on you. And depending on where you are, the response time gets quicker and quicker. So in the beginning areas where, nobody really cared for people in that area at that time, crime was pretty much, you could do whatever you want, and if the police got called on you, you were definitely going to be able to get away in time. You could probably walk out of the response radius before the police showed up. Getting into the more affluent areas of town, you better, if you do something wrong, you better move quick because the police will be there before you have a chance to get in your car and go. So, as a funny aside, dark humor, there is a shop that I have decided that every time I walk into it or go past it, I have to go in and punch the owner in the face because, he was the first guy to really spout some very nasty racist comments towards Lincoln as I went in to just go to the bathroom and grab a med kit and leave again without bothering anybody. But it was a segregated store, had the sign, no blacks allowed. And he was spouting off a bunch, and I finally decided I was just going to punch him in the face and lay him out. And it was so refreshing and for doing that, that I just decided every time I was going to go by that store, I would stop, punch him in the face, lay him out again, and keep on going. So, there's that. A little more focused random violence than you would get in GTA. But you don't feel as bad about it. So, I don't know. Not much else to say about Mafia. It is a good game now, finally. It's just some, I won't say wholesome fun because there's some pretty dark undertones to it. In terms of the whole going on a quest for vengeance and, nothing's getting in the guy's way and all this kind of stuff. But, you just gotta have to play it or watch it to see what I'm talking about. But that's it. Mafia 3. 4 out of 5 something or others. It's been a while since I've done this. My review creds is going away. So anyway, next is going to be Frostpunk. That's the one that Rage had asked me about. So, it's a newer game that just came out. Anybody who doesn't know about it, it is a strategy game where everybody dies. Well, so far for me, that's what's happened. It's a very hard, frustrating game, and it's not really my wheelhouse of games, but there's something about this one that just kind of is different that really makes me want to keep playing it. It is frustrating and hard, and what makes it so hard is you are not just up against the clock in terms of trying to find people out in the wilderness in time to help bring your population up so you can do more stuff, but you're also up against your population, their discontent, and their hope. As good things happen, the discontent goes down and the hope goes up, and vice versa. If bad things happen, the other way goes around. And it's a lot harder to bring up hope and lower discontent than it is for them to go up and down, opposite ways. You're also up against the climate. Every few days or so, the climate will go up and down. And I haven't survived long enough to see the true storm showing up. But it definitely gets a lot colder than I have had. I've gotten down to minus 60 degrees Celsius. And everybody was getting sick and falling apart and quitting work and dying. Not necessarily in that order either. I was watching somebody else that I follow on YouTube play the game, and in the major event, it gets down to under 100 degrees, and you have to survive that for several days. So, I guess, spoiler alert, oops. But the whole point of the game is to try and get everybody to the point where they can manage their way through that. I haven't yet. Of course, it's probably part of the reason why I'm horrible at all the other strategy games, is I'm stuck with the mentality of one of each building type is enough. And that definitely does not play out in this game. The one thing that never really occurred to me is having multiple research facilities to research tech faster. Mainly the technologies that make harvesting resources more efficient and insulating buildings and raising temperature levels better, which I never got around to having by the time the mid-cold happens and everybody starts dying. So there was no way I was going to survive the Great Frost. So that's one of the things. Another thing that I really like about it is the aesthetics. It's two of my favorite things. One, winter, and two, steampunk. Throw them both together, and this is just a recipe for a game that's got me written all over it, even though it's not my style. Or play style, I should say. But yeah, it's basically another ice age comes, and you have to try and weather it out in small little towns. And you're governing the ways that you control the ways that you govern the people, either by hope and religion or by order and fear and secret police type deal. So, yeah. Let's see what else. I'm looking at my notes now. Somebody think, yeah, I already kind of mentioned that. There's just a lot going on. You're up against several different enemies at the same time, whether it's your own people, the environment, your research, or your ability to gather resources and advance technology. For instance, you can research the 24-hour shift edict and then force a building to work for 24 hours straight. You take a major hit to discontent. And if you do that so often, you run the risk of people just deciding that no, they're not going to work for 24 hours. They're going to sandbag for the whole 24 hours. So you would end up being less productive if you just had them work a normal shift anyway. So, the one other aspect that I really like about this is the rotary system, or the rotary placement. So everything is placed around the central generator. There's no grid or 90-degree angle grid, let's put it that way. Everything comes out radially from the generator. Everything also has to be attached to the generator somehow by roads. So I can't just build a sawmill out in the middle of nowhere for people to grab logs from. They actually have to have a road connecting to it. I think it's, from what I could see, there's steam pipes going through the road, and everything has to be connected to the central generator so steam power can go to all the buildings or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, so it's just an interesting concept I haven't really seen in any other games. It can lead to, as long as everything is kind of the same size, it can lead to very efficient designs of, stacking buildings right next to each other, around in a diameter or circumference. And even so, if you do end up missing a few things here and there and have some gaps, it's pretty easy to fill in gaps and try and push radially out. Because the generator is what gives you the majority of your heat for your building, for your buildings to stay warm with. You can later build steam hubs to kind of increase it later, farther out away from the generator. And then for each of those things, you can increase their radiuses to increase the distance that all of your people are covered with warmth. So yeah, it's a fun game. I definitely was sinking several hours at a time, not even realizing it, just trying to get an extra day or two in to, get another day's worth of tech or another 24 hours worth of coal stocked up for the generators, and one thing leads to another, and eventually things just spiral downhill for me. I guess I just don't build fast enough to meet the amount of people coming in. So I don't know. It's fun. I will definitely keep at it. I give it 4.5 icicles, because it's a cool game. Ha ha. Okay, yeah, that was horrible. On that note, I'm gonna have to get out of here because it's getting a little warm in the car. I need to crank on the AC, and I'm stiff because I'm trying not to move on my leather seats. And yes, first world issues. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later.
I heard hello? Can you hear me?
Anyways, how about that Ghost Shark letter?
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Do we have any tweets?
Well, no, I do have. Since he did mention a couple of games, I haven't played the third Mafia yet. I played a little bit of the first one, and I played through the second one. I do wonder if Mafia 3 does more with its open world.
I don't know. I have Mafia 3. I got it as one of the the Humble Monthly bundles.
Uh-huh.
But I haven't played it yet, so I don't know. Outside of just what I remember from like a couple of reviews I saw from it last year after it released. So yeah, I can't really be much of assistance in talking about that.
Yeah. And Frostpunk, it does look very, very interesting.
Frostpunk looks super cool, super interesting. It's one of the ones that I'm considering buying during the Steam sale. Like, it won't be discounted heavily because it just came out in April. But, I mean, even a 10 or 20% discount would probably be enough to push me over the edge on Frostpunk. Because I've heard pretty much nothing but good things.
Only thing I've heard is that it doesn't have a lot of replay value. And it's a little bit on the shorter side. But it's more of a strategy game than a city builder.
Yeah. Actually, it's currently 15% off right now. And that promotion is good for another day and a half. So does that line up with the Steam sale?
No, it does not.
Yeah.
Oh, a day and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said day. But day and a half, yeah, it does bleed into the Steam sale. So who knows what that'll do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna wait and see, if it doesn't, if it goes off of sale when the Steam sale starts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that seems like it would be weird, but I mean, games have done it before, so. If it goes off of sale or if the discount drops back down to, say, like 10% or something, I'll wait longer on it. But I am very interested in Frostpunk. Was there anything else? I didn't have any other notes about his letter.
Not really. He wasn't able to come up with anything for his rating scale on Mafia 3, and he missed the obvious. 4 out of 5 punches to the face of a racist shop owner.
1 out of 2 concrete slippers.
Now, is the shop owner allergic to the slippers?
Oh, because they're made out of concrete. That's a good question. Probably.
Now, do we include the Chihuahua?
To be sleeping with the fishes?
Yes.
Definitely. They're a team. Parrot Chihuahua's going down with the hypochondriac.
Oh, I hope she never hears this.
I doubt she will. If she does, though,
You're in so much trouble.
Hi, Chihuahua lady.
You think she made it this far without sending a complaint? If she heard this,
if she heard this, she definitely sent a complaint. I don't think she listens to our podcast. And thank God, everyone in my office staff, most of them are either old or they don't give a shit about video games. So I'm pretty safe from no one in my current office listening. Granted, there were a couple of people from my old office that did listen, and they were cool, so.
Yeah, you gotta send them Chihuahua Lady now. A referral.
I suspect I'll get a text message from one of them on, this weekend. Like, what's this about a Chihuahua Lady now? or a Facebook message, one of the two. Yeah, if you want to know, I'll tell you the whole story. This specifically goes out to Amy or Angel, if the two of you are listening. Just call me up or, meet me for like coffee or something. I'll tell you the whole story in full detail about the lady. And we can get clinical. I could consider it a consultation, and then I could share confidential information. I wouldn't do that. That is breaking the law. Anyone listening, I actually would not do that. I'm joking. Unless I actually needed to make a consultation. But that's different. Anyways, before I get myself in legal trouble.
You mean more legal trouble?
I'm just gonna stop digging that hole. I already dug it really deep.
Well, speaking of digging holes, Kyle was playing some real life Stardew Valley. I have like 3 weeks worth of tweets, and my file I didn't save my tweet, so I'm having to read these off my tweet deck. So, yeah. You commented about Xenonauts being free for a limited time, which is long gone by now.
Yep.
Then there was a long discussion between you and Kyle with my awesome boss. Okay, get these parts to loading for working on Monday. Me. Just anywhere, or do you have space for other parts? My boss. Anywhere, Kyle. We're just going to run these parts like shit through a goose. And then he goes on to tag us eventually. So let's see. Ghost Shark pipes up. Went to the circus with the kids tonight, and they played a Taylor Swift song. And my first thought was, only if Buff was around to enjoy this. Biff. Stupid autocorrect. Which, to be fair, Buff is not wrong if you watched where Biff actually got his name Biff.
Yeah.
Death of a Salesman, for those who are wondering. Kyle also chimes in there. Buff Aldrin and Zol's trauma. That brings back some misspelled memories. Homer to your mole, I replied. Not misspelled, but same idea. And Jim actually piped up just a little bit ago. I'm not sure if I even want to know. And he linked a article from IGN saying Steam now adds options to see how much you spent on your games, which has actually been there for a few weeks now. Well, I guess
yeah, and it's been available for longer than that with the extended, or the Steam Enhance extension, and there are sites you can go to that would tell you as well. Mm-hmm. But it's baked into default Steam now. Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit scattered-brained tweets just because I forgot to save the file, but if you wish to contribute to the next file, you can do so, VGL Podcast on Twitter, or just email us, vglpodcast@gmail.com, like Ghosty Shark did.
Indeed.
So Discovery Queue.
Indeed, it's been a while since we've done a Discovery Queue. I'm worried, by the way, go for the theme song. I'm worried that some of those hundreds of games I've taken off are going to wind back up in my Discovery Queue.
Which will be hilarious, by the way. And I've got something immediately, by the way. I've been sitting on my Discovery Queue for the last about 15, 20 minutes on the first entry because it was actually, it's a curiosity.
Okay.
And dragging things around it actually minimized everything on my computer just now. Allow me to say fuck Windows and how they handle dual monitors, because it's fucking irritating at times.
Indeed.
Okay. Sorry, I have to get everything back up and situated properly. There's the discovery queue. I got Bus Simulator 18 as my first item. And it falls in that kind of line of interesting driving game. Just kind of chill out, relax. It's rated as mixed on Steam for some performance issues. So, that's a definite problem. But certain simulators, especially driving simulators, they're kind of just a chillax game. And there's a definite subset of the community that enjoys them. Including myself, actually. I have more than a few hours in both European and now American Truck Simulator. Thanks once again, Jim. And this looks like it's along the same lines. Granted, I imagine because you're driving a set path instead of hauling cargo, it's probably less interesting to me. But it's being suggested to me because Euro Truck and spin tires. Which that's actually something that we didn't talk about, now that I think about it.
Yeah, we forgot to talk about Spin Tires Mudrunner.
Next week.
Okay.
Next week.
Next week, yeah.
I just realized we didn't talk about Spin Tires. But graphically, it doesn't look bad. I mean, it looks about on par with simulator games.
Hey, I got Moonlighter. I'm just going to skip past that. I'm not going to put it on my list. So I have had 8 games that I recognize as previously being on my wish list before. So I'm just quietly moving on past those.
Well, I got a second game. Dark Souls Remastered. Do I have to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I also had Dark Souls Remastered, but I also just passed it by.
Well, there's a lot of people pissed about it being a paid version, considering, other remasters are either very cheap or, are given away for free. So I can definitely see why people are pissed.
I mean, if you own the original Dark Souls,
yeah, it's 50% off.
It's a 50% off.
Yeah, but
discount,
it's still $20. Yeah, so I imagine if they handle it like they did, or like the developers of Spin Tires did, then when it goes on sale, it'll be even cheaper.
Yeah.
So, I'll be able to eventually pick it up for pretty cheap. It's just... Uh-oh. I heard a ooh.
Yeah, go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, that was pretty much it. I'll eventually be able to pick up for cheap, and I probably will, but not in a huge rush for it. So, next.
Lego The Incredibles.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that pop up on the actual store page, but not in my discovery queue yet. It'll probably be in the upcoming.
It's a Lego game that's The Incredibles, and it looks like it's covering both movies, and it's released in sync with The Incredibles 2, which has been doing really well at the
Yeah, I'm not sure about The
theaters.
Incredibles 2. I absolutely love the first one. It just seems like they went with the more boring possible storyline. I was more interested in them working as a team than stay-at-home dad.
I've heard really good things about it so far. Katie and I are going to go see it with King at some point in the next week or two, so I'll be able to report back to you how good the movie is. But yeah, I mean, I love the Lego games. I own several to play with my kid once he gets old enough to really play them, and he's about the right age, got enough motor skills and stuff down to be able to do it. So I think we might be buying this, and after we go see the movie, come home and start playing the Lego Incredibles. We'll see.
Yeah, which the Lego games are actually really good. It's just, they're very easy, so they're aimed towards, more just chillax once again, but also children, which is not a downside. It's just not something I wanted to dive into.
The Lego games are really easy to beat, but to complete them, some of those challenges and the more difficult things to acquire in the game, like the hidden stuff, can be pretty difficult to get to. But But yeah, beating the games themselves and unlocking pretty much everything is really easy because they are aimed at younger children for the most part. So yeah.
So I got the next version of Insurgency, Insurgency Sandstorm, which is just the next version of the multiplayer shooter, which is actually a pretty hardcore little experience from what I could recall. I didn't play much of it because I was getting my ass handed to me. But if you enjoyed the first game, then there you go. It's releasing in September it has a pre-release sale on it for 20, or it's probably actually a sale for people that own the first one, 20% off. So $24. That's actually not bad for a multiplayer focused shooter these days. That's not full free to play. Insurgency had a pretty good run at it, actually.
It was also a pretty decent game. It wasn't like Mill Sim, but it had some more realistic elements. Like, you didn't throw away your ammo if you reloaded. Like, you would keep a half-filled magazine, and then later on,
it was
you
sort
would
of
have that.
a halfway in between the two.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, they gave away Insurgency several times for free to bolster its player base. So I imagine that that's probably going to carry over quite a bit to the next version, that player base.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the player base for Insurgency is right now. I can go check, though. Steam charts. 2,100 right now with a peak of just under 3K. That's actually not bad for an indie title. Or, well, smaller game, I should say, because technically it's not indie, but still.
Yeah.
With an all-time peak of 15,000, probably during one of the free weekends.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has a healthy enough player base. I imagine it'll carry over to the second version. But, yeah, not a bad little military sim light. How about we call it that?
Yeah. So I got an interesting looking game. Find and Destroy Tank Strategy. This is a free-to-play multiplayer turn-based tank strategy game. It says it has MOBA elements, but I don't see what those are. But it's simultaneous turns. This is a game that's on mobile devices and PC, and it says it's got cross-platform multiplayer. So it looks neat. It looks neat. I'm all about strategy games, and I've never seen anything quite like this before. It's free to play, so I might check this out.
It's sort of not quite XCOM, but that sort of idea of it.
Yeah.
So
as long as it's not like massive pay to win bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can see the packs right there. All the way up to $60 for different things. But yeah, looks neat.
So I got Hitman 2, which I don't think there has to be a lot said about Hitman 2. It looks like they're doing trying to flesh out the game a bit more. They've put in a lot more NPCs in the game, which will be interesting to see how they balance it. I don't think it's going to be episodic this time, right? I didn't hear anything about it, so I'm assuming not.
I haven't heard anything about it being episodic or not, so...
But it's also annoying that they've reset the numbering again. Because the reboot last time that was the episodic game rebooted the numbering system, so that's irritating to try to find Hitman 2 coverage. But I've never played that much of the Hitman games. I know that they've done a change of focus with the Hitman series once they went to the more modern Hitmans, not counting the previous episodic one, where it was more of a stealth action game than an assassination game, and a lot more focus on, or I should say less focus on the sandboxy elements. So it'll be interesting to see if they try to return to form with that. It does look like they are continuing the limited time one attempt missions, which honestly feels like it's missing kind of the point of Hitman, where it was kind of master a map and find out all the little secrets and stuff.
Yeah.
From everything that I've heard, that seems to be the big focus of it. And yeah, of course, there's early access, 3 versions, up to $100 for this. But yeah, that's almost industry standard now, as much as I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
And looks like they're doing traditional DLC for it, based on the expansion packs or the different tiers. But hey, at least it's only 3 tiers and not 5 like some other games are doing now.
Wasn't it 7 that the new Assassin's Creed game had? 7 tiers?
With the ultimate like being 3... in the middle.
Yeah, the ultimate was right in the middle.
Good times. Actually not. Anything for you?
Nope, I'm almost done with my second queue. After,
I'm still on my first.
Well, I had to start a second one because I had like 9 games that were all from my wish list that I had unlisted. Or marked as, not marked as not interested. Just remove them from my wish list.
That looked interesting for a moment, then I realized it was a co-op survival game. No. Hey, I just got Lego The Incredibles.
Nice.
I knew it would be here somewhere.
So here's one that tickles my fancy, that released early access in late March, called Gaia Beyond.
Why does that sound familiar?
Getting a link right now. There's the link. 2D top-down action RPG, but space sci-fi with mining and crafting and exploration.
Similar to games you played, Rebel Galaxy. I bet you hope not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's marked as similar to No Man's Sky and Elite Dangerous for me. So, yeah. I mean, there's really not much more to say about it otherwise. But it looks like the type of game that I like to play, and it might work well on my laptop.
Yeah,
it looks like
the rest of my discovery queue was either survival games or games that you already talked about, or games that I wasn't interested in. So I'm done.
Yep, the Gaia was the last game in my discovery queue, so I too am done. So I got 3. I mean, technically I had 2 queues, but really it was only like 1. I'm gonna start marking all of the games I removed from my wish list as not interested.
Hey, we heard that you are no longer wishing for this game. Do you wish for this game?
Yeah, you just removed this game from your wish list.
We saw
Are
that.
You sure?
We saw that you were at the store page. Are you sure you don't want this? Oh, Steam. And that's part of the reason why opening up Steam Direct and kind of defending it has me kind of at pause because their algorithms kind of suck.
Indeed, kind of. Just
just enough to be irritating, but still
just
funny.
A little bit.
Speaking of irritating and funny, this is the part of the show where you go first.
Indeed. So if you want to find my content on the YouTubes, you can do so by searching for Gaming Psychologist on the YouTubes. We haven't discussed the upload schedule for our new series. Yeah, is this going to be one where we get all the way through, since there's going to be a lot less episodes?
I want to get at least a couple more before we really sit down and figure this out. So it'll be a week or 2.
Okay. Well, then in a week or 2, unless you're listening to this in the far future.
And hello, future person.
Indeed. The thing that's upcoming for us is Spin Tires Mud Runners. You'll see that on my YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. Aside from that, it's just the regular podcasting uploads and me uploading stuff to Twitch, which if you want to go over to Twitch, twitch.tv/jarthur4707, where I use the Twitch Premiere system to run live versions of the shows where the community can interact.
Do they interact?
Sometimes. There's comments on some of them sometimes, which is nice. I forgot to start the E3 episode before we started recording. So technically we're not live now, but obviously if you're listening to this on Twitch, we're live now. And also the E3 show was live at one point. You know, the internet and time. It's a concept, right? What is time?
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Indeed, but it'll be there at some point, or maybe it's there now. Who knows? Maybe you're listening to this on Twitch right now. In which case, hello, person on Twitch. But anyways, yes, you can find things there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at JMA4707. I tweet about all kinds of random things. Today, I tweeted about discovering that the Steam wishlist numbering system goes to 1,301. And when it goes past that, everything is listed as being in place 0.
I'm more shocked that it has a 3 in the number.
That's true. Valve is anti-3. Maybe it skips now because it's 1301. Maybe it skips all of the 3s prior to that, and they just weren't expecting someone to have that many games in their wish list. And so I kind of broke the system.
Though what breaks the system is whenever they have to mail you about deals on your wish list. You're the reason why the deal emails are delayed by 6 to 12 hours.
Yeah, those emails I get are useless. Because it'll be like, you have 14 items on your wish list on sale. And I'm like, that's great. Which 14? I can go check the email.
The alerts are useless. The email is actually useful.
Yeah, they're both useless for me.
Oh, see, I never got it where it's just a number.
Yeah, I either get just an email that says, an item on your wish list is on sale. Well, thanks. Thanks for that. You might as well have just said the sky is fucking blue.
Well, the wish list can be sorted by discount.
It can. But usually when I sort the wish list by discount, there are 36 items every week on sale. At least.
Give it a couple of days.
Or I'll get an email that says you have 14 items on your wish list on sale, or whatever the number is, and I'm like, "That's great. Which games?"
I love that they gave up on you.
Sometimes when I get an email that will say these games are on sale, and I'll actually list the games. Most of the time, I'm going, I don't know what those games are. I assume they're on my wish list, but I don't know what they are.
To be fair, I've had that with my library. I was in the final moments of the choosing, and there's been a few times that, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. So first world problems, right? But anyways, yeah. So I posted that tweet today, and I posted a tweet about how I'm now the official spider killer around the office. I killed a spider yesterday, and then the lady who saw me kill the spider had me come to her office today to kill a spider that was in her office. And then her boss, because she was a case manager, so her boss, the case manager director, then called me later. She called me on the inner office phone network, and she was like, "You busy?" I'm like, "No. Why are you calling me, Tabitha? It's nice to talk to you, but what do you need?" And she's like, "There's a spider in my office. Can you come kill it?" I was like, "Sure, I guess I'll come kill a spider for you."
Question. Does this involve hazard pay?
I said in the tweet that I needed to ask for a raise. I asked the office manager today. I was like, "Hey, Tony, so everybody's having me kill spiders around the office. Can I get a raise or a bonus for that?" And she laughed and she said, "No, not yet. You'll have to fill out a punch card before,
or at
you
least
get
a donut
bonus for killing spiders." We get free food at the office all the time from the drug reps, so that wouldn't work.
Yeah, but the food's drugs, so.
We had free office breakfast today. There's bacon and eggs and fruit and granola bars and toast.
Yeah, but we know that you didn't touch the granola bars.
Waffles. I got a couple of granola bars to have for snacks for later, but I didn't touch them for breakfast. I had bacon and eggs and toast, and I had some grapes. I like grapes for pretty much any time. But I digress. If you want to be my friend
you digress?
on Steam,
no.
My Steam username is jarthur4707, and I accept all friend requests from the lovely people on Steam who are listeners of the podcast. And feel free to chat me up anytime.
And if you wish to know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Chihuahua. Chihuahua. I mean, there was only one possible password this week, right?
Yeah. I mean, you had to do it. You just had to.
I mean, that's contractual obligation there, right?
Pretty much.
So for my content, I'm slowly getting back in the swing of things. RimWorld only missed one episode in the midst of everything, and that was mostly due to the E3 content, because my computer was just tied up for so long churning out E3 episodes, because I did both the main episode and I also did the individual conferences, to cast a wider net, and I did get a few hits on those. Okay, I admit a few of them were just spam bots, which does make me wonder just how the fuck the spam bots find me and not actual viewers.
It's the game. They know.
God damn. They need to get off my fucking lawn. But I'm in the final revisions of the choosing. I'm just on my playtesting. I'm going to do that this week and start recording next week. So we're looking at probably late next week or week after before that's up and running. Getting spin tires of a couple back episodes for whenever things happen to the one of us. That doesn't involve flipping down a hill. Hopefully. And the Sunday Sampler also missed this past week, which is going to be a little sporadic in the next few weeks just because of limited releases, and I don't really have anything planned for it. My original plan of pre-recording some stuff to have in backlog, it wasn't turning out all that well, and I wanted at least a semblance of quality,
Yeah.
Or, a facade of actual quality content. And it wasn't coming out how I wanted it, so I scrapped it for the time being. So it really depends on what I get and what I feel like going back to try. I did try a couple other games, but they just out of the backlog, and they just were not recording right, or was it clicking for me? And I didn't play enough of them to really be able to talk about them here. So they'll be lost in the mists of time. Or just in the absolute mess of my Steam library. But you can find me over on the YouTube's Gaming with Caffeine Rage with that content, or lack thereof for the time being. Or just see me tweet occasionally, Gaming with CR on the Twitter. And as I page back, because, like I said, everything minimized on me earlier. It's not a good sign whenever I see two desktops. That's bad. It's even worse whenever there's a blue screen of death because I see two of them.
Nice.
But once again, you could reach us, vglpodcast@gmail.com, with your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics, or just tweet them to us at VGLpodcast. Our Patreon, patreon.com/VGLpodcast, has helped pay for our Podbean account, vglpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts our RSS feed as well as the show notes. So if you wish to skip all the boring parts, well, you skip right to the end, don't you?
Nah, we're not that boring.
But you can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever Jared shoved us. If you are watching this on YouTube or Twitch and want to get the RSS feed with the MP3, since it is just a static image. Unless you're putting something on these.
Nah, just a static image.
Okay. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground, and our Discovery Key music is Doobly Doo, both by Kevin McLeod, and you can find his work at incompetech.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice. Bye-bye now.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
So how many chihuahuas do you think that lady's gone through in her lifetime? Because you know that's not the first chihuahua.
Yeah, definitely more than one. I don't remember how old she was. I checked her chart just to find out what happened with the chihuahua, but I don't remember how old she was.
What, you're not going to saw her in half and count the rings?
She was like in her 30s, like early 30s. So at a rate of...
What's the attrition rate of a chihuahua on a shoulder?
Let's be conservative and say at a rate of 2 chihuahuas per year. Yeah, she's got let's say a 10-year history.
and
I mean, that's 20 Chihuahuas right there.
Well, if the train is leaving St. Louis at 55 miles per hour, sorry. Oh,
yeah.
She just seems a little insane.
Just a little. All right.
But one other question though before we wrap up.
Uh-huh.
How do you train a Chihuahua to stay on your shoulder?
Fuck if I know.
I mean, is it just paralyzed by fear?
I think he looked terrified, but Chihuahuas kind of always look terrified, so I don't know if that was his real emotion or not. But, I mean, she didn't have a harness or any kind of safety straps or anything. He was just sitting there. So I assume that she gets them as babies and just puts them on her shoulder, and it's like, all right, you stay here, and if you fall, you die, and I'll get the next one.
I'm just imagining her apartment is just this box of Chihuahuas in the corner. All looks exactly the same. Every few months she gets another black one and adds it to the box, so they're constantly that overall same size and age once she has an incident.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, fun times. All right.
Well, not for us. Okay, maybe for us, but not for the Chihuahua.
Probably not. Alrighty. Bye.